Chapter 23:19. Ning Shu was a little reluctant to give up. However, if this continued, she felt that she might not be able to withstand the heavenly might. Even if her soul power was strong, she couldn't withstand the continuous lightning strikes. Moreover, each lightning tribulation was more ferocious than the previous one. Ning Shu thought of a way to lead the lightning to a place so that she would have time to investigate the situation below. She would know if there were any treasures after investigating. However, how was she going to lead this large cloud away? Ning Shu flipped her finger and countless water fell from the sky. It was about to drown the entire mountain range. In order to prevent the flood from running everywhere, Ning Shu set up a barrier. This barrier surrounded the entire mountain range and formed an iron bucket. Slowly, the water drowned the entire mountain range. The mountain peak couldn't be seen. At a glance, it was a vast ocean. The lightning fell into the water and sizzled. It didn't look so scary. However, water was also conductive. However, Ning Shu felt that it was better to be in the water than to face the lightning alone. Ning Shu set up a barrier on her body and jumped into the water. She immediately felt that her soul was about to explode. Oh my God, the power of the lightning is too damn strong. Ning Shu quickly jumped out of the water. She thought that the water would make her situation better. However, she didn't expect that the dark clouds in the sky wouldn't disperse at all. They were still relentlessly striking this place. Ning Shu was speechless. What was inside for the tribulation clouds to persist like this? She thought that the tribulation clouds would disperse when there was no target. However, it didn't. Ning Shu set up an enchantment on top of the barrel and added a cover on top of it. The lightning would strike on the cover and everything would be fine. Pa! The enchantment that Ning Shu had just set up was broken by a loud thunderbolt. Mixed with anger, the thunderbolt fell on the water surface, and the entire surface of the water rippled with thunder and lightning. There were even tribulation clouds that spread out and covered Ning Shu's head. Crackling sounds could be heard as the tribulation clouds crazily struck Ning Shu. Ning Shu spat out smoke and ran away. He opened a black hole and quickly left the Nine Palace Mountain. Oh my God, I almost transcended the tribulation. Transcending the tribulation as a soul was no different from courting death. Ning Shu sat on the black sand and grabbed a handful of it. Finally, she lay down. The sand felt cool and soft. Ning Shu yawned and fell into a deep sleep. He didn't know how long he slept. In any case, when Ning Shu woke up, he felt refreshed. Seeing the abyssal prefect standing not far away, he quickly stood up and walked over. When did you come? It's been a while. The abyssal prefect turned around with a black flower in his hand. Why didn't you call me? Ning Shu's fine. It doesn't matter. I don't have many things, but I do have a lot of time. The abyssal prefect sized up Ning Shu. Every time I see you, you're always in a sorry state. Ha, I went to dig a hole. It's inevitable that I'll be a bit embarrassed, Ning Shu said carelessly. What are you here for this time? Take away the soul pearl and send these souls to reincarnation. The abyssal prefect said calmly as he sniffed the black flower. So many planes have been destroyed. How many planes can reincarnate these souls? After the planes were destroyed, these souls had to enter the planes, which made the planes even more crowded. Then reincarnate these souls in the 9 worlds? The abyssal prefect asked. Ning Shu was expressionless. I can't guarantee that nothing will happen. Besides, there are billions of planes. 1 or 2 living beings can be stuffed into each plane. So, the worry you're showing is especially laughable. You say some righteous and compassionate words, but when it comes to your own interests, you change your words. It's annoying. The abyssal prefect said calmly. The abyssal prefect should be a sharp-tongued gentleman. Yes, it's easy for me to say that. Hurry up and take those souls away. The Nine-Palace Mountain is too small to accommodate these souls. Ning Shu said directly. The Abyssal Prefect put the black flower on Ning Shu's ear. Ning Shu touched the flower on his ear and took it off. Actually, I've always wanted to tell you that this is morning. Oh. The Abyssal Prefect said, I only have black flowers. Didn't you humans say that you want to be mourning? Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu felt that the Abyssal Prefect was like a foreigner who insisted on learning the Chinese language. Was he enjoying pretending to be a human? Ning Shu was silent. The Abyssal Prefect entered the Nine-Palace Mountain and took out more than 20 pearls. Ning Shu asked curiously, Are your rations souls? Yes, sometimes I want to know how food feels. The Abyssal Prefect said. Ning Shu was speechless. Look at how scared you are. Only when there are too many souls in the world of reincarnation and we can't squeeze in any more will we eat these souls. Digesting these souls is not comfortable, so I don't like to eat them, the Abyssal Prefect said gently. The Abyssal Prefect said gently. He was wearing the skin of a gentleman and elegantly said things that could devour souls. Ning Shu didn't think it was cute at all. Then what about these souls? Ning Shu asked. Each pearl was the soul of an entire realm. If he ate them, he would die from overeating. I don't like the 7 emotions and 6 desires that are mixed in the souls of humans. The Abyssal Prefect said, the 7 emotions and 6 desires that are removed from the souls in the pool of reincarnation are poisonous. Ning Shu thought, so, the Abyssal Prefect is complaining? Ning Shu didn't say anything. It seemed that the Abyssal Prefect was complaining about humans, and she was a human too. Ning Shu changed the topic. The war is over now, right? It's over. The Abyssal Prefect said a few words and left. Ning Shu pulled his afro hair and continued mining. However, he still went back to the system space to see if the soul source had been purified and sent back. Back in the system space, Ning Shu saw a bottle on the coffee table. The bottle was filled with a golden liquid. Could this be the soul source that the main system had purified? This bottle wasn't big. It was only the size of a fist. The mountain of golden soul stones that had been purified only produced this little bit. However, it was very viscous. Ning Shu felt it. It was pure soul source. He took out the peerless martial art and poured the soul source on the peerless martial art. When the soul source was poured on it, it was immediately absorbed by the world. It was like dry land absorbing water. Ning Shu poured the entire bottle of soul source on the peerless martial art. The world absorbed it all. Ning Shu touched the peerless martial art that was full of scars. He had absorbed so much, but he didn't feel anything. If such a bottle of pure soul source were to be auctioned, how much would it sell for? Ning Shu didn't know how much soul source he had poured into it. Fortunately, there were many golden soul stones. He also had a collection of relatively pure soul source liquid. Ning Shu sighed. He didn't ask whether it was worth it or not. After so many twists and turns, it still returned to him. This kind of fate couldn't be abandoned. So, he still had to go mining. However, these dangerous places were really hard to find. Ning Shu took some spirit liquid from the spirit pool. This spirit liquid might be useful for the golden thread grass. Chapter 23:20. Ning Shu walked into the cave and glanced at the flower bud. The baby was sleeping with its eyes closed. The golden earthworm next to it was snoring loudly. Ning Shu took out the spiritual liquid and dripped a drop of water on the golden silk grass at a distance. Spiritual qi was not beneficial to all plants. For some plants, spiritual qi could be considered as poison. Seeing that the golden thread grass was not harmful, he dripped some water around it. The pocket-sized baby in the flower bud opened its eyes. Its golden eyes stared at Ning Shu. Its eyes were pure, and there was nothing in them. Ning Shu reached out and touched the pocket-sized baby. The baby grabbed Ning Shu's finger with its tiny hand. Ning Shu smiled. Although he did not know what species it was, since it was alive, he could only let it grow. After a while, the baby closed its eyes again and curled up into a ball to sleep. Ning Shu dripped a few drops of emerald green liquid around the golden thread grass. The golden earthworm was still sleeping soundly. Ning Shu could not help but want to roll his eyes. After looking at the golden thread grass, Ning Shu went to look for ore veins. She didn't go to the previous ore vein, but changed to another one. This was a place covered in snow, but there were people coming and going in this mine. The mine had already been excavated, and baskets of spirit stones were transported out. Ning Shu was speechless. He was one step too late. It seemed that this was not an absolutely dangerous place. The ore veins would be mined. Ning Shu touched his arm. This place was too cold. It was bone-chilling. These miners were so cold that their bodies were shivering, and their faces were purple. Since someone had opened the mine, Ning Shu could only change places and look for other ore veins. In order to find soul stones, Ning Shu ran until his legs were thin. Ning Shu did not care much about ordinary soul stones. What was important was the high-purity spirit liquid and the golden soul stone. Only these two things could help repair the world. It's time to come back and do the mission. All the mission takers have been summoned. 2333's voice sounded in his mind. Ning Shu, what do you mean? We just went to war, and now you want to do missions. Ning Shu still wanted to wander around for a while. Rather than completing quests, he might as well search for ores. He might as well use the soul power he obtained from completing quests to comprehend the law of space and enter 9 Palace Mountain's second floor. It's not just you. Even the quest givers who rarely do quests have been called back. There aren't many of them. 2333 said, take this opportunity to meet a lot of powerful quest givers. Ning Shu sighed. Just by thinking about the corpses floating on the sea of laws, he knew that more and more planes were collapsing. Ning Shu returned to the system space and said to 2333, I'm still immersed in the battle. I'm barely able to complete the quest. You've been wandering around for quite some time, 2333 said. Are you doing system quests? Ning Shu was speechless. It feels like I haven't warmed up in a long time. Let's do a simple quest to warm up, Ning Shu said. Oh, okay. Ning Shu had purchased some fasting pills from the merchant shop. Although she might not be able to use them, just in case, she knew how to refine pills. When she was free, she would also get a furnace to refine pills to cultivate her mind. However, she was too busy right now and didn't have the time to do so. Then let's do the quest, Ning Shu said. 2333. Ning Shu shouted again. 2333 was often in a daze. Okay. Ning Shu felt her soul become weightless, but she quickly fused into a body. The biggest advantage of soul water was that it could quickly fuse into the body of the user. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. There was a thin and sharp voice in her ear. Although the voice was very soft, it was still very unpleasant to hear. Ning Shu opened her eyes and saw a eunuch wearing a hat. She quickly reached out to help him. Your Majesty, it's time to go to court. The eunuch waved her hand, and a group of palace maids filed in, holding basins and spittoons in their hands. Ning Shu touched his Adam's apple. Men. Well, it's not bad to become the most powerful man in the world. As for dressing like a man, I just need to get used to it. Under the arrangement of the palace maids, a majestic emperor was born. He wore a crown with 12 beads on his head, and a black dragon robe with a majestic golden dragon embroidered on it with golden thread. The person who commissioned him looked very good. He arrived at the court with an empty stomach. The eunuch said that there was something to report, and if there was nothing, the court was dismissed. In the end, these court officials reported many things, but they quarreled in the court. The factions in the court were so complicated. Ning Shu supported her forehead with her hand. The crown on her head was really heavy. Ning Shu ignored the quarreling in the court and began to accept the plot. The person who commissioned him inherited the throne at the age of 16. The young emperor had no power, no soldiers, and no confidants. All the power was in the hands of the Empress Dowager. So when he woke up in the cold to go to court, he was just a puppet. Whose youth was not Chinibu? Which emperor did not want to be a wise emperor and leave his name in history? The person who commissioned him wanted to take power and military power from the Empress Dowager every day. In particular, the person who commissioned him hated the most. His uncle held half of the country's military power. The Empress Dowager and the Empress Dowager were his aunt and niece. Every time he tried to take power from the Empress Dowager would always say that the person who commissioned him was too young. Moreover, with the officials and the Empress Dowager watching from the side, he would not make a mistake. Managing a country was not a pile of sand. If he made a mistake, he would have to start over again. In the previous dynasty, the emperor did not have much say. He had to ask the Empress Dowager for any decision, and the Empress Dowager had to intervene. In the harem, it was even more complicated. There was the empress who was reborn for revenge, there was the empress who wanted to steal the emperor's heart, there were transmigrators who wanted to talk about love, and there were concubines who wanted to steal the emperor's favor. It could be said that demons were dancing wildly. Ning Shu, this emperor, wished to take power. Ning Shu yawned and rubbed his hands. It was a bit cold. He said to the officials who were quarreling with each other, "Are you done quarreling? If you're done, Zhen wants to go back and sleep." "Your Majesty." Immediately, many of the courtiers looked at Ning Shu with resentment. "Ning Shu, since you want to quarrel, then continue." Ning Shu left in a huff. When he returned to his sleeping quarters, under the conflicted gaze of his personal eunuch, he really did lie down and sleep. Emperor, later on, the Empress Dowager. The eunuch did not dare to continue. Ning Shu turned his back to the eunuch and began to practice the peerless martial arts. Although the world of peerless martial arts was about to collapse, the peerless martial arts could still be practiced. Thinking about it, it was quite bitter. In such a big palace, the person who commissioned him did not have anyone he trusted, nor did he have anyone he could use. He did not even dare to use his personal eunuch. After all, the Empress Dowager was very powerful now. Everyone in the imperial harem had to listen to her. In fact, being the Empress Dowager was much more comfortable than being the emperor. When the personal eunuch saw that Ning Shu had really fallen asleep, he was very anxious. If the emperor was like this, the matters in the imperial court would spread to the Empress Dowager's ears. When the Empress Dowager came and saw that the emperor was so lazy, the unlucky ones were the servants they served this time. However, they did not dare to wake the emperor up. They tiptoed around and did not dare to make a sound. Chapter 23-21. The Empress Dowager has arrived. The Empress Dowager has arrived. The eunuch's sharp voice sounded outside the bedroom. Then the Empress Dowager and the Empress Dowager walked in, surrounded by a group of eunuchs and palace maids. Ning Shu lay on the bed without moving. The Empress Dowager was a graceful and noble woman with a strong aura. She glanced at Ning Shu on the bed and said to Ning Shu's personal eunuch, "Shaoyuzi, why haven't you woken up the emperor?" "Shaoyuzi, did they really have to wake him up? His mother?" Shaoyuzi had no choice but to go to the bedside and gently call Ning Shu, "Emperor, the Empress Dowager has arrived." Ning Shu made a sound of acknowledgement. He opened his eyes and stretched. He looked at the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager maintained herself well. She still had her charm. There were no wrinkles on her face. Her hair was thick and there were no white hairs. However, time would leave its mark on the body. No matter how well she maintained herself, no one would treat her as a little girl. Beside the Empress Dowager was a woman wearing a light red palace dress. She was very beautiful and somewhat similar to the Empress Dowager. At this moment, she looked at Ning Shu with a complicated gaze that was mixed with hatred. "Muhu, you're here." Ning Shu lifted the quilt and sat on the bed. When the Empress Dowager saw Ning Shu like this, she instantly became angry. "Emperor, look at yourself now." Ning Shu propped one foot up on the bed. "Muhu, what do you want this son to do? Be a good emperor. Now, you don't look at memorials, don't care about state affairs, and sleep so lazily. Which emperor is like you?" The Empress Dowager said. The jade beads on her head made a sound. It could be seen how agitated the Empress Dowager was. "Aren't the memorials all looked at by those old things? They've already discussed and decided. Things that can't be decided are naturally decided by Muhu. What does it have to do with Zhen? Zhen is just sleeping. Could it be that an emperor can't even sleep?" "Ning Shu's 'can you not be so unreasonable' expression made the veins on the Empress Dowager's forehead pop. "You'll be laughed at by all the subjects of the world if this gets out," the Empress Dowager said harshly. She was a little distressed. "Imperial Mother, you're thinking too much. We're just taking a nap. We want to be diligent and love the people, but we don't have the authority. Even if we want to find something to do, we can't do it. We want to go out in plain clothes." Ning Shu sighed, looking bored to death. "You, my son." The Empress Dowager didn't know what to say. "I want you to learn how to be a diligent and loving emperor. Learn how to be a good emperor." Ning Shu stood up. "Imperial Mother, please hand over the military authority to your son. Now is not the time to hand it over to you." The Empress Dowager didn't expect Ning Shu to say it so directly. She just said, "We'll talk about this later. You're the emperor. You shouldn't be so lazy. Before you learn how to be a good emperor, I won't give you the power." Ning Shu just smiled slightly and asked, "Then what makes a good emperor?" "What makes a good emperor?" The Empress Dowager said, "Understand the affairs of the court, know how to keep the officials in check, and know how to use people." These things were a bit difficult for Ning Shu because the person who commissioned him had ascended the throne for almost 2 years. In these 2 years, he had been a puppet emperor. Now that the court was controlled by the Empress Dowager, there was no one in the court. No matter what he announced, no one would raise their arms to support him. He was alone, a commander without an army. The Empress Dowager gave Ning Shu a few words and then left with the Empress. The Empress paused and walked in front of Ning Shu. She bowed and said, "Emperor, Imperial Mother hopes that you can become a wise emperor. She wants to train the emperor's temperament. That's why she is like this." Even though the Empress was submissive, Ning Shu could clearly feel the hatred and disgust coming from her. The Empress' hands in her sleeves clenched into fists. Her nails dug into her palms and brought pain. Ning Shu waved his hand and asked the Empress to leave. The Empress bowed and turned to leave. When she saw the Emperor, she couldn't control her emotions. She loved the Emperor so much in her previous life, but in the end, she was coldly banished to the harem by him. The entire Qing family was exiled, the Empress Dowager was imprisoned, and her son, who was supposed to inherit the throne, was taught to be submissive. The Qing family, which was once prominent, declined just like that. Fortunately, God gave her another chance. She returned to the time when the tyrant was not in power yet. She could do it again. The Qing family couldn't be ruined by the tyrant. Her son would be well protected. They were a young couple. Before the tyrant ascended the throne, she was his wife, but he didn't care about the relationship between husband and wife. Ning Shu was speechless. To be honest, Ning Shu didn't understand one thing. "I love you so much, but you don't love me. This is a big crime. It's your fault. I love you so much, but you don't love me. Is there any justice in this? You won't have a good death. The Empress left the bedroom and caught up with the Empress Dowager. She bowed and said to the Empress Dowager, "Mother, don't ruin the relationship between you and the Emperor because of a small matter. The world will belong to the Emperor sooner or later. You don't understand. Now that the Qing family is prominent and has handed over the power, will the Emperor let the Qing family go?" The Empress Dowager also had a headache. It was a hot potato. The Empress curled her lips, but the Emperor will be more and more dissatisfied. Let's talk about this later. The Empress hoped that the tyrant would quarrel with the Empress Dowager so that the Empress Dowager wouldn't let him take over the throne. Since her rebirth, she only wanted revenge. How stupid was she to help persuade the Empress Dowager to give up the power? She tried her best to be a good wife and gave all her love to him. But how did he repay her? He exiled the Qing family and banished her to the cold palace. The palace maid helped Ning Shu put on his clothes. Ning Shu asked Xiaoyozi to bring over the memorials. The memorials she was looking at now were selected and handed over. They were all inexplicable things. It was hard to pretend to be diligent and love the people. "Emperor, Lu Jiaoyi is outside the hall," Xiaoyozi said. Ning Shu made a sound of acknowledgement. "Lu Jiaoyi? Transmigrator?" The Empress Dowager's harem, there was a strategy system, a transmigrator, and a reborn person. It was said that the imperial palace was dark. Once you entered the palace, it was as deep as the sea. But all kinds of monsters gathered here. Ning Shu put down the cinnabar pen, flicked his sleeve and said, "Let her in." Lu Jiaoyi came in with a food box. When she saw Ning Shu, her eyes lit up. Lu Jiaoyi was a beauty. Although she was wearing a palace dress, there was always a sense of freedom on her body. Her soul was different. "Emperor, Qinxia made some pastries for you. Have a taste." Lu Jiaoyi took out a beautiful plate from the food box. The pastries on the plate were very beautiful and looked very appetizing. Moreover, each pastry had a smiley face painted on it. Chapter 23-22. This kind of pastry was the fluffy little cake of the modern era. It looked cute and appetizing. "Thank you for your hard work," Ning Shu casually said. The imperial palace was clearly a power struggle that killed people without spilling blood, but there were people in this kind of situation who wanted to have a pure love. Sometimes love was an all-purpose fig leaf. Ning Shu tasted it and put it down. Lu Jiaoyi was a little puzzled and asked, "Emperor, is it not delicious?" "It's all right." "Is Emperor in a bad mood?" Lu Jiaoyi asked. "Qinxia believes that Emperor will wait until the clouds open and the moon sees the light. This is only a temporary predicament. I believe that Emperor will pass it. Running to the ancient times to stew chicken soup for the soul, to be a confidant. How do you know that Qin will succeed?" Ning Shu raised his eyebrows and asked. "Because Qinxia believes that Emperor is a wise ruler. Wasn't it written in the history books?" "Oh, what kind of wise ruler is Qin?" "When Emperor is on the throne, the country will be prosperous and the people will be at peace. The people will be glad to have a good emperor like you." Lu Jiaoyi secretly stuck out her tongue. People who could be called great emperors all left a thick and colorful stroke in history. The current emperor should be suppressed by the Empress Dowager. He didn't pay attention when he was studying and didn't know the details of seizing power. He only knew that he succeeded in seizing power in the end. Then he started the glorious life of a great emperor. Qinxia believes that Emperor will become a wise ruler and become an existence revered by tens of thousands of people. Qinxia believes in Emperor. Ning Shu couldn't help but laugh in his heart. She said it as if he became a wise ruler because of her. Why didn't he go and persuade those tyrannical and incapable rulers? That was called boundless merit. He was originally a person who left his name in history. You transmigrated and said it as if everything for the country and the people was done for you. Promise me that you will be a good emperor. Think too much. Ning Shu reached out and pushed the pastry on the table. Under Lu Jiaoyi's puzzled gaze, he pushed it to the ground. With a "pa" sound, the plate fell to the ground and broke into pieces. The pastry rolled on the ground. Emperor. Xiao Liuzi, who was guarding the door, suddenly pushed the door open and saw the pieces on the ground. Ning Shu said, Lu Jiaoyi lost her manners in front of Jiaoyi Palace and is grounded for 3 months. Lu Jiaoyi's expression was dull. When she heard Ning Shu's words, she subconsciously retorted, didn't I drop this on the ground? Could it be that I dropped it on the ground? Ning Shu looked at Lu Jiaoyi. Lu Jiaoyi immediately came back to her senses. She knelt on the ground and said in an aggrieved tone, Emperor, you can't treat Qinxia like this. Lu Jiaoyi had a look of despair on her face, as if she had suffered a big blow. Seeing Ning Shu's cold face, Xiaolu hurriedly asked Lu Jiaoyi to leave and asked someone to clean up the garbage on the ground. Ning Shu looked at Lu Jiaoyi's sad back and felt that she was quite dramatic. She probably imagined that he was different in this harem. She had promised to be his confidant. Ning Shu felt that it was better to let her stay in his palace. Otherwise, she would have an expression of, I'm the one who knows you the best. She was different from other coquettish and cheap goods. Imperial concubines were absolutely weak in the harem, but it seemed that each of them felt that they were different. They were different coquettish and cheap goods. The only thing that comforted Ning Shu was that the food in the palace was very good. After grounding Lu Jiaoyi, the empress came to ask what happened. Emperor, you want to be fair, blah blah blah, very virtuous. She often said that Imperial Mother said, you want to have more children. Imperial Mother, Ning Shu knew that the Empress was using the Empress Dowager to suppress him. He was now a hot-blooded man and was also the most powerful person in the world. If a person was suppressing him everywhere, the person who entrusted him would have already jumped. He didn't know what would happen after being instigated. Grounding the Empress of a country would definitely cause a big wave in the court. She was a woman of the Shen family, old General Shen would definitely explode. There was also the Empress Dowager, who could tolerate her niece being grounded. The method to deal with an ordinary imperial concubine like Lu Jiaoyi couldn't be used on the Empress. This time, it was probably to deal with the heart-stealing system and seize power at the same time. The person who entrusted him was really isolated and helpless. It was said to be a simple task, but he didn't expect it to be such a task. Ning Shu silently listened to the Empress' words. She kept mentioning the Shen family, the Empress Dowager, deliberately provoking people. If you're done, then go out. Zhen wants to mark the memorials. How about, Empress, you're so capable, how about you help Shen mark them? Ning Shu said. The Shen family had an Empress Dowager, an Empress, and old General Shen also had a lot of soldiers in his hands. It really made people afraid, especially the Empress Dowager who delayed handing over power. The court was isolated and helpless, and the harem was in a mess. When the Empress heard Ning Shu's words, her body trembled. Her heart was filled with pain and hatred. Scum! Qinxia doesn't know anything about the court. Emperor, you have to take care of your body. The Empress forced a smile. Ning Shu stared at the Empress' face. His eyes were a little sharp. The Empress was scared by Ning Shu's stare. Empress, what's wrong with you? You look a lot older. Don't work too hard. You look lifeless. Ning Shu said. A trace of panic flashed across the Empress' face. She found an excuse, I must not have slept well last night. Empress, you have to have a good rest. You look a lot older. The Empress touched her face and left. It wasn't that her face was old, but her heart was old. Every time she woke up, she felt that she was lying in the harem, surrounded by lunatics. Since her rebirth, the Empress thought about tearing down the cold palace every day. She found an excuse to teach the eunuchs and mamas in the cold palace of Yeding a lesson. In her previous life, she was demoted to the cold palace. These dogs bullied her and squeezed her. Every day, she thought and hoped that the emperor would remember her. But in the end, she didn't wait until she died. After the empress left, Ning Shu asked Xiaoyozi to send some gifts to noble Lady Ping. Xiaoyozi didn't understand what Ning Shu was thinking. Why did he want to reward noble Lady Ping, who was completely unrelated to him? He picked some jewelry and things like rouge, powder, and conch for Xiaoyozi to send. Xiaoyozi felt that noble Lady Ping might be favored, so he was very polite when he sent the gifts. Noble Lady Ping was also very puzzled. Not long ago, she was chosen to enter the palace. She had only served the emperor once. Until now, she hadn't served the emperor. Why did he suddenly send gifts? Moreover, the emperor didn't have any love for her. Even his favorability was at zero. She had already slept with him, but he didn't have any favorable impression of her. Noble Lady Ping felt a bit regretful. If she had come earlier, serving the emperor in bed would have been different. At least, she could have left a deep impression on the emperor. Noble Lady Ping accepted the gifts and gave Xiaoyozi some silver. She asked Xiaoyozi to say a few good words in front of the emperor. When Xiaoyozi returned, he reported to Ning Shu that he had already given the gifts to noble Lady Ping. Then, noble Lady Ping said some words of concern for the emperor. Ning Shu didn't say anything. But that night, he went to noble Lady Ping's place to meet the host who carried the system this time. Chapter 23-23. Noble Lady Ping was a cold woman. Her every movement was cold, like a concubine of the Winter Moon Palace. Noble Lady Ping bowed to Ning Shu according to the rules. Ning Shu only felt that the concubines of the imperial harem were truly beautiful. Each one was more beautiful than the last, especially when they were all cheats. They were shockingly beautiful, so beautiful that they didn't seem like real people. As soon as he got close to noble Lady Ping, Ning Shu smelled the delicate fragrance on her body. However, it wasn't the smell of incense, but the fragrance of her body. Her face didn't have any pores and was glowing like jade. Beautiful. Everyone liked to look at beautiful things. Ning Shu stared at noble Lady Ping. Noble Lady Ping smiled as she poured tea for Ning Shu. However, she frowned inwardly. Why was there no reaction at all? Men were visual creatures. No one would understand the beauty of your soul and heart through your unkempt appearance. People were always tolerant of beautiful people. Beauty wasn't a mistake, but this man was just looking at her. Couldn't he have a better impression of her? Did she have to serve him in bed once? Ning Shu opened his mouth. You really are beautiful. This concubine doesn't dare. Any one of the sisters in the imperial harem is prettier than me. Noble Lady Ping said reservedly. Ning Shu made an "oh" sound and didn't say anything else. Noble Lady Ping saw that the atmosphere had stiffened and racked her brains to find a topic to talk about. Of course, noble Lady Ping understood the emperor's current situation in detail. Right now, the emperor was at the lowest point in his life and needed someone to constantly encourage him. Of course, she couldn't directly say that he could do it. That was the most inferior method. Wasn't that telling the other person that he couldn't do it now, but he could do it in the future? Wasn't that stupid? Noble Lady Ping had people prepare the dishes and poured wine for Ning Shu. Emperor, drink some wine. This is something that this concubine brewed when she was bored. Ning Shu gave her face and drank it. He stayed for the night to sleep. Lying on the bed, noble Lady Ping placed her hand on Ning Shu's chest. Ning Shu held her hand and said, "Sleep. In this imperial harem, my heart is the most peaceful when I come to you." Clapping for love was too much of a killjoy. Noble Lady Ping, lie in bed and do nothing. The next morning, he yawned as he went to court. Basically, it was just a process. The factions below were arguing, and Ning Shu chose to support one faction. Fine, you're right. We'll do as you say. With the addition of Ning Shu, the struggle between the factions would become even more intense. You can slowly fight among yourselves and fill up your own people with empty positions. But where are you going to find such talents? After the morning assembly, Ning Shu looked through the list of officials in each department to understand the situation of each official in detail. In the harem, the transmigrated lady who was supposed to make chicken soup was grounded and couldn't come out to make chicken soup for the time being. Ning Shu only doted on noble Lady Ping. After chatting with noble Lady Ping for 2 nights, she promoted her. She was promoted from a 6th-rank noble lady to a 4th-rank noble lady. She should be called Ping Fangyi now. Jumping 2 ranks caused an uproar in the harem. Many concubines ran to the empress to complain, saying that this was not in accordance with the rules of the ancestors. The empress was eager for the emperor to mess around and did not run to admonish him. She told the Empress Dowager about this matter and let the Empress Dowager know how foolish he was. The Empress Dowager unhappily called Ning Shu over and scolded him, saying that it was fine to dote on a woman, but he could not break the rules of the ancestors. Ning Shu directly said that Zhen could not make decisions in court. Could it be that Zhen could not even dote on a concubine? What was there that Zhen could decide? Ning Shu still did things his way and doted on Ping Fangyi even more. After the morning assembly, he called Ping Fangyi to Xuanda Hall to help him grind ink. How much was this doting? Ping Fangyi faced the concubine's piercing gazes and wanted to roll her eyes. To be honest, she did not understand what this man was thinking. He said that he doted on her, but after so long, who did not clap when they were in bed together? He liked to call her to eat when he had nothing to do, or express his dissatisfaction with the Empress Dowager and a group of officials in front of her. Ping Fangyi only listened and did not express any opinions. This was the first time she encountered such a situation. The man seemed to dote on her, but did not have any favorable impression of her. If a man truly loved a woman and was lying in bed with her, would he not have any desire, or was it impossible? Ping Fangyi felt speechless. This emperor was stubborn. She tried to clap her hands to exercise, but he seemed to have a pure heart and few desires. He did not seem to have any intention of having sex. She was completely unable to find a way to improve their relationship. The emperor ate a lot of good things every day. Ping Fangyi could not find a special way to win this man over. Not only did she not win him over, but she also attracted the hatred of a large group of people. The concubines in the harem, and even the Empress Dowager did not like her. It was as if she was Su Daji who wanted to bring disaster to the country. If it was true, Ping Fangyi felt that it did not matter. After all, she could leave after winning the emperor's heart. But now, she did not gain anything. Instead, her situation in the palace was not good. Xuanlu Hall. A concubine was doing needlework. She had a tranquil temperament and was communicating with the system in her mind. Ping Fangyi has already won the emperor's favor. I'm afraid that it will not be long before she wins the emperor's heart and leaves. Are we still not going to act? The concubine frowned and put down the needlework in her hand. There was a golden dragon embroidered on it. The dragon was very lifelike. In this harem, the empress was reborn. She hates the emperor, so she does not care who the emperor favors. The empress is not the best partner. The Empress Dowager hopes that her son will become a wise emperor, but she does not want to give up the power in her hands. You can start from the Empress Dowager and gain the emperor's favor. The system's voice in her mind was calm and steady. The concubine did not pay attention and pricked her finger with a needle. Drops of blood came out from her white finger. Do you really want me to fight for the Empress Dowager's favor? The concubine bit her lips. Her expression was somewhat resistant. Do you really want to see me and other men? The mission is important. In the harem, only the emperor's favor is your bargaining chip against Ping Fangyi. But you have to be careful. Do not make the Empress Dowager hate you. The Empress Dowager does not like concubines who seduce the Empress Dowager. The system said calmly. Its low voice had a calmness that made people feel calm. All right. The concubine sucked the blood on her finger. I have to make it again. Since it is a gift for the Empress Dowager, it cannot be a dragon. The concubine's brows were a little depressed. She started to embroider again, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not do it well. She kept pricking her finger and the cloth was stained with blood. Do I really want to go with the emperor? The concubine asked the system. I have given you the simplest and most effective method. Do you have any other methods? The system said. The concubine bit her lip and angrily threw the thing on the table. I don't want to take this kind of mission in the future. Okay. The system said. The concubine's mood improved a little. Her face revealed a smile. Chapter 23-24. After her son doted on a woman without limit, the Empress Dowager found another problem with her son. That was, after the court, he locked himself in the bedroom to sleep. An emperor, doing nothing all day and sleeping during the day, completely looked like an unemployed youth. The Empress Dowager was about to explode in anger, especially when she went to the bedroom. She found that the emperor had closed the door and did not open for a long time. The Empress Dowager said that she was sorry to the late emperor, sorry to the ancestors, sorry to the court, sorry to the people. Ning Shu was cultivating in the bed with earplugs. In the end, the Empress Dowager asked someone to break open the door, took Ning Shu out of the bed and reprimanded him. Ning Shu ignored it all. Emperor, are you using this method to fight against me? I've said it before. Before you truly become a good emperor, I won't give up my power. The more you act like this, the more I won't give up my power. How can I face the late emperor if you act like this? The previous emperors were all secretly thinking about power all day. At least they knew how to make progress, but now. The Empress Dowager really did not want to see her son's decadent appearance. It was too boring. She did not know what her son would do in the future. The Empress Dowager knew that if the emperor was mischievous, it would be terrible. There was an emperor who asked the palace servants to take off their clothes and sit on the boat. Then he asked someone to overturn the boat. He clapped his hands and watched the palace servants struggling in the water, with the palace servants, with the dogs, with the fierce dogs. Those were all beasts, licentious and immoral. The more the Empress Dowager looked, the more she felt that her son was developing in this direction, especially now that her son had disregarded the rules and doted on a woman in the harem. He broke the rules, and in the future, he would be more and more excessive. In the end, it would be out of control. Just the imagination made the Empress Dowager tremble with anger. She loudly scolded Ning Shu, Emperor, you always blame Ijia for not giving you the military power. Look at you, you want to make the country disappear. Ning Shu sighed, Zhen is just sleeping. How is it related to the country? Can't an emperor sleep? This is a matter of attitude. Look at you. Do you look like you want to be a good emperor? During this time, you should reflect on your mistakes and think about the responsibilities of an emperor. The Empress Dowager angrily flicked her sleeves and turned to leave. Ning Shu stretched and said to Xiao Lu, have you prepared the things I asked you to prepare? All right, Your Majesty. Xiao Lu Zi took out the eunuch's clothes and put them on Ning Shu. He also had another eunuch put on Ning Shu's clothes. After everything was ready, Xiao Lu went out and said to the eunuch guarding the door, the emperor said that no one is allowed to disturb him. Ning Shu lowered his head and followed Xiao Luozi to the palace gate. At the foot of the wall, Xiao Luozi gave the waist token to Ning Shu and asked worriedly, Emperor, do you really not want this servant to go with you? It's too dangerous. What if the Empress Dowager finds out? It's fine. Give me some silver, Ning Shu said. Xiao Yozi quickly took out a purse and said with a worried expression, "Emperor, do you want to inform the Empress Dowager? If I inform her, I won't be able to go out." Ning Shu put away the things and slipped out of the palace. He took out a map and looked at it. He bought a set of clothes from a clothing store and fanned himself with a fan. A scholar was born. Ning Shu thought about the list of officials and planned to visit them one by one. Ning Shu investigated the list of officials. You should know that the harem was a center of gossip. If you want to know the news of a person, you can inquire about it in the palace. Although it was the harem, there were palace maids and eunuchs who can go out of the palace and hear all kinds of gossip. For example, which official's concubine was beautiful, which official favored his wife and neglected his concubine, and which official's wife was valiant. If it was a low-key official, Ning Shu will ask Xiao Liuzi to investigate and let the eunuchs go out of the palace to find out the gossip. After Ning Shu's observation for a period of time, Xiao Liuzi can be regarded as the person who entrusted the job. Xiao Liuzi was also worried about the person who entrusted the job, but he was more afraid of the Empress Dowager. Every time, he helped to persuade the person who entrusted the job. His heart was on the side of the person who entrusted the job, but the Empress Dowager was too strong. Xiao Liuzi felt that his whole person was not very good. The faction struggle in the court was complicated. Some officials had to join a faction to protect themselves in order to avoid disaster. Of course, there were also those who did not join the faction. Although they were not unlucky, it meant that they could not be promoted. At present, the Shen family was the most powerful in the court. The old general had a large number of soldiers. There was an Empress Dowager and an Empress in the harem. Ning Shu found the address of an official and knocked on the door to enter. The servant did not know Ning Shu, but seeing Ning Shu's scholarly appearance, he went to report to the master. Ning Shu visited the officials one by one. Some of the officials did not even have the chance to attend the court. But when they saw Ning Shu, they were very excited. Ning Shu chatted with these officials for a while. They talked about various topics. At the same time, he also observed these officials. Then, he made a check mark in his heart. Before he left, he reminded them not to tell anyone and to keep it absolutely confidential. Some people were removed from Ning Shu's list. After visiting the officials one by one, Ning Shu was hungry. He walked to the door of the Shen family's house. The Shen family's house looked very imposing. There were two big lions at the door. The lions were lifelike and ferocious. The surface of the lions was polished and smooth. Ning Shu looked at the stone lions for a while. Then, he walked to the door. There were 4 servants guarding the door. They stopped Ning Shu. "Who are you? What are you doing in the general's house?" "I am here to look for old General Shen. Please inform him." The servant looked up and down at Ning Shu. Then, he pushed Ning Shu. "Where did this poor scholar come from? Old General Shen is not someone you can see whenever you want. Please inform him that Murong is here." Ning Shu held a fan and cupped his hands. "Get lost. This is the general's house. Not just any random cat or dog can come here." Ning Shu saw the sedan chair from the corner of his eye. He deliberately moved closer to the servant. "You didn't inform him. How can you not know that the general won't see me? Get lost. Don't you know where to make a scene?" The servant directly pushed Ning Shu to the ground. Ning Shu rolled in front of the sedan chair. The sedan chair stopped. The sedan chair driver lifted the curtain. It was General Shen who walked out. General Shen and the Empress Dowager were siblings. He was the Empress's father. He was his uncle and his father-in-law. General Shen looked at Ning Shu, who was sitting on the ground. He seemed to be a little afraid to recognize him. "Emperor." "Uncle, it's Shen. Shen came to look for you, but I can't get in," Ning Shu said with a smile. The veins on General Shen's forehead jumped. He wanted to get angry at the servant who hit him. Ning Shu was magnanimous. Those who don't know are not guilty. Uncle, don't blame them. However, your Shen family's door is really not easy to enter. Chapter 23-25. General Chen was clearly more frightened than surprised by the sudden appearance of the emperor, and it seemed that his own servants had chased the emperor out. Why didn't the emperor bring anyone with him? It's too dangerous. General Chen hurriedly let Ning Shu in. Ning Shu looked around the general's mansion and said to General Chen, "Why is it different from when Zhen came last time? It's bigger than before." "Emperor, it's because there are more people in the family, so it was expanded," General Chen said. Ning Shu nodded. "It's better than before, not bad." General Chen changed the topic. "Emperor came alone?" "Yes, Zhen wanted to come out for a walk. The palace is too stuffy. Imperial Mother talks about Zhen every day. Zhen also wants to be a good emperor, but Zhen might not be born a good emperor, so Zhen secretly came out. Don't tell Imperial Mother," Ning Shu said. "Uncle, Zhen is hungry. This subject will arrange it." When the emperor came home, the entire general's mansion became restless. Old General Chen was an old man with white hair, but his spirit was very good. He was now over 70 years old. Ning Shu had to call him grandfather, saying that the Chen family should be the biggest relatives. Old General Chen looked at Ning Shu with a kind of benevolence, scolding with half truth and half lies. "In the future, you can't be so reckless, sneaking out of the palace and not bringing anyone with you. The emperor's safety is related to the throne. Next time, Zhen will definitely bring someone. This time Zhen came alone. I almost couldn't even enter the door," Ning Shu said. "Who fought with the emperor? This old subject will help the emperor vent his anger," Old General Chen said as he slammed the table, his body emitting a murderous aura. "No need, they don't know Zhen. What's more, the Chen family is big, not just anyone can act wildly," Ning Shu said. The food was quickly prepared. Ning Shu looked at the rich food on the table. "It looks delicious. It's just plain tea, as long as the emperor doesn't dislike it," General Chen said. "How can that be? The food in the palace is just like that. But every time we eat, we can't eat more than 3 mouthfuls of a dish. Even if we want to try more, we can't." On the dining table, there were flashes of swords. Ning Shu only had one purpose, and that was to take back the military power from the hands of old General Shen. Ning Shu wanted to register a new military power and cancel the military power in old General Shen's hands, but the world knew that the Shen family held the military power. Therefore, there had to be such a show to tell the imperial court and the military that the Shen family had handed over their military power. Old General Shen's skills were very high. Even though Ning Shu had probed him in many ways, old General Shen had no intention of handing over his military power. He had the authority to send out troops, but without power, he couldn't do anything. Although the emperor was a supreme existence in the world, without authority in his hands, he was still useless. His words carried enormous weight. That was because he had power in his hands. Without power, who would give a shit? The conflict between Ning Shu and the Shen family was over military power. The Shen family was afraid that they would get rid of the hares and the hounds, so they refused to give up. Ning Shu promised that he would not do anything to the Shen family. As to whether or not old General Shen listened, it was unknown. "If you hand over your military power, I will give you a death exemption." Even if the old General Shen died now, or if someone else ascended the throne, this conflict would always exist. Coming out of the Shen family, Ning Shu said with a smile, "Uncle's home is really comfortable. You eat delicacies, sleep on a high bed, and have a group of servants. But you still have to restrain the servants. Don't let the world think that the general's food can even beat the emperor. Emperor, please forgive me." Even if the Shen family's minds were clear, it didn't mean that everyone's mind was clear. There would always be people who relied on their power to throw their weight around. Ning Shu changed back into the Taijian's clothes and returned to the palace. The Empress Dowager was waiting for him in the bedchamber. Before the Empress Dowager could speak, Ning Shu spoke first. Jin went to find uncle, but was beaten up for blocking the door. Empress Dowager, all of the Empress Dowager's words were stuck in her throat. The Empress on the side immediately said, Emperor, it's those servants who don't recognize Emperor. Qinxie will definitely have my father teach them a lesson. Emperor, you still have to tell Muhu in the future. Muhu is very worried. Ning Shu glanced at the Empress. He understood the Empress's hatred, but it didn't mean that he agreed. As the Emperor, his lifeline was held by someone else. He was a puppet emperor. In the battle with the Shen family lost. Considering his wife and mother, he didn't kill the Shen family, but exiled them all. If the Shen family was willing to hand over their military power, it wouldn't be like this. No matter who became the emperor, the Shen family would be a thorn that had to be pulled out. The Empress was forcing her own actions onto the old general. She seemed to have done many things for the old general, but the old general was so heartless and ungrateful. The old general was fighting more with the Empress Dowager and the Shen family. In the middle, the Empress seemed to be mediating, but in reality, it was useless. Now, she blamed her actions on the old general being ungrateful. But she didn't think that the two sides needed to mediate. Other than shouting in the middle, it was useless. I love you and have done so much. If you don't accept it or return it, you are heartless. Because of the Shen family and the Empress Dowager, the old general was cold to the Empress and was not close to her. He just didn't like the Empress. As for what the Empress did, he didn't care at all. It could only be said that each side had their own position. In the Empress's heart, it was normal to think that the old general was a heartless man. But for a man, nothing was more important than power. Ning Shu grinned and said, yes, I was scared when I went to the general's mansion. There were so many guards at the door. If I didn't know, I would have thought that I was at the gate of the palace. Your Majesty, don't sneak out in the future. It's dangerous to go out alone. The Empress Dowager said helplessly and didn't continue this topic. She knew that the Emperor didn't want to listen to her nagging, so he kept talking about the Shen family. She was really weak. The Empress Dowager couldn't teach Ning Shu a lesson for a while, so she left with the Empress. As soon as the Empress Dowager left, Xiaolu felt alive. He was sweating all over and said to Ning Shu, Your Majesty, you are back. It was fun outside the palace. I will go there next time. Xiaolu sat on the ground with a plop. A eunuch came to inform Ning Shu that he would have dinner in the Empress Dowager's palace. Ning Shu hummed. It was really difficult to move. When he went to the Empress Dowager's palace for dinner, he saw an imperial concubine. The Empress Dowager intimately pulled Ning Shu to sit down. The imperial concubine was serving the dishes. Ning Shu looked at the imperial concubine and asked, Who is this? Forgive her. The old general didn't even remember his own harem. How could she know? The imperial concubine saluted politely. She was not sad because Ning Shu didn't remember at all. She said, Your Majesty, I am a good beauty. Oh, Ning Shu replied, sizing up Beauty Liang. When the Empress Dowager saw that Ning Shu was staring at the good beauty, she said that she wanted to be equal and have children. Then she praised the good beauty. From the beginning to the end, the good beauty lowered her head and looked a little shy. When she raised her head, there was a quiet smile on the corner of her mouth. She was a very comfortable woman. Chapter 23-26. Ning Shu ate and finally agreed to spend the night with Beauty Liang. When Beauty Liang heard Ning Shu's words, the chopsticks in her hand trembled. Although her expression was calm, Ning Shu still felt her resistance. The women in the harem all hoped to be favored by the emperor. After all, women also had normal physiological needs. Moreover, there was the temptation of power behind this favor, but Beauty Liang resisted. Ning Shu felt that it was interesting. When a woman refused to be close to other men, it was mostly because her heart belonged to someone else. Men loved because of sex, women loved because of sex. The harem of the client was simply lively. After eating in the Empress Dowager's palace, Ning Shu and Beauty Liang went to Beauty Liang's palace. Along the way, Beauty Liang did not speak. She was very boring, like a block of wood. Ning Shu did not mind. When they arrived at the palace, Beauty Liang poured tea for Ning Shu. Then, she washed up and went to bed. Beauty Liang finally found an excuse. Emperor, Qinxia's abdomen is a little uncomfortable. Are you okay? Do you want me to call the imperial physician? Ning Shu asked. No need, it's an old problem. Qinxia likes to eat spicy food, so there is always something wrong with her stomach. Beauty Liang said. Ning Shu made an "oh" sound, then sleep. Beauty Liang breathed a sigh of relief and said thank you to the emperor in a low voice. Ning Shu felt that it was very interesting. Since she was not willing, why did she come up? Now that Ping Fangyi was in the limelight in the harem, Beauty Liang came to the Empress Dowager to act obedient at this time. The Empress Dowager hated Ping Fangyi now and needed a harem woman to balance her. It was not that the Empress Dowager did not know Beauty Liang's intention, but she was willing to help. But now that the emperor was beside her, she was not willing. Could it be that someone forced her? Ning Shu thought about all kinds of questions in his mind. Beauty Liang's body stiffened and did not dare to approach Ning Shu. Ning Shu sighed. She looked like a bully who bullied a good woman. There was a flood in Pingzhou and the situation was serious. The court officials were arguing over the quota for disaster relief. Ning Shu sat on the dragon throne with his head propped up and watched the people of the 6 tribes argue. The silver was the Ministry of Revenue's matter, but the Ministry of War said that the disaster was serious and needed the army to guard it to prevent a civil uprising. In order to compete for the quota for disaster relief, several factions had a tacit understanding that they were greedy for some money. Also, when the imperial court officials went to the local areas, there were also benefits. There were also exchanges between the officials and the rice merchants. In short, a large chain of interests was involved. In the end, after a lot of arguing, Ning Shu decided who should go. Let's choose him. That guy from the Ministry of Revenue will go. Ning Shu pointed at an official, who immediately knelt down and thanked him, saying that he wouldn't let the emperor down and would resolve the flood. Ning Shu left the court with an annoyed look on his face. The next day, when the court was held again, the official from the Ministry of Revenue who was sent to the disaster relief was impeached. The memorials were like snowflakes, and all of them had conclusive evidence of corruption and bribery. Ning Shu looked as if he had been slapped in the face and was furious. He directly removed the official from the Ministry of Revenue and investigated him. Then, he said at lightning speed, as for the vacant position, it will be promoted by the next level. Oh right, who is the next level? Everyone was speechless. No matter what, they now needed to choose a new person to go to the disaster relief. Ning Shu didn't choose the newly promoted official from the Ministry of Revenue. Instead, he chose other officials. In any case, he didn't choose officials from the Shen family's faction. He wanted to see if there would be more memorials tomorrow. As expected, the memorials came again the next day. The imperial censor listed all kinds of crimes. Ning Shu's face turned red as he angrily removed the official from the Ministry of Revenue. As for the vacant position, it would be filled by the next level. Ning Shu chose a new official, and it was still not from the Shen family's faction. This time, the official named by Ning Shu looked as if he had nothing to live for. The previous 2 were a lesson to be learned from the mistakes of the previous 2. Things could only be done twice, but not thrice. This time, the impeachment didn't come again. However, no matter how the 2 sides fought, they still impeached each other. There were people eyeing the vacant position. Most importantly, after experiencing the matter of the previous two officials, the officials sent to the disaster relief this time would definitely be much more honest to avoid being caught. This was especially true when they were accompanied by the army. The army was the Shen family's people. The officials were in a state of constant surveillance. It was really interesting to compete with these people. After the court session, the Empress Dowager ran over to Ning Shu and reprimanded, "How can the court be so sloppy in its use of people? You don't even know what kind of person the officials are before promoting them." Ning Shu asked in return, "Then Imperial Mother, how should they be promoted? Shouldn't it be filled by the next level?" The Empress Dowager didn't know what to say for a moment. She could only say, the Emperor should be good at using talents. At least, he should first understand the character of the officials. Then say that the court uses people based on my mood. Whoever I think is good will be promoted. Isn't it based on work experience? Ning Shu asked. No. Then Imperial Mother, what do you want me to do? Ning Shu asked. Wasn't it just using people from the Shen family's faction? If he used people from the Shen family, the court would become a place where the Shen family had the final say. The Empress Dowager looked deeply at Ning Shu. Her expression was a bit complicated. She said, "Emperor, do whatever you want. Imperial Mother, have you ever dreamed of Imperial Father? In the dream, Imperial Father scolded me for being a good-for-nothing. I asked Imperial Father why he said that. Imperial Father said that I was already in my 20s, and he still wanted Imperial Mother to work hard for me. I promised Imperial Father that I would take good care of Imperial Mother and let Imperial Mother live comfortably for the rest of her life. I will be filial to Imperial Mother and raise her with the world." So what if he was a Qianlong once? Hearing this, the Empress Dowager's mouth couldn't help but twitch. This was too straightforward. When she heard that he would raise her with the world, the Empress Dowager's expression became even more complicated. "Emperor, you are my child. I naturally want you to be well." Ning Shu and the Empress Dowager reminisced for a long time. The Empress Dowager wiped away her tears and left. Ning Shu's face was expressionless. After saying so much, he still didn't have any intention of giving up power. Wasn't this just like how the family was rich but insisted on letting people eat coarse cornbread while saying, "Child, I love you"? It was too greasy and too unsatisfying. Of course, even if there was cornbread to eat, one wouldn't starve to death. He still had to fight. Once the Empress Dowager left, Ning Shu quickly called Ping Fangyi over to play. When Ping Fangyi saw Ning Shu, she scolded Ning Shu in her heart. She deeply suspected that her system was broken. Why was the favorability level always 0? This was pretty much the hardest emperor to deal with. In the past, it wasn't even this hard to figure out how to obtain the emperor's heart. At most, the emperor's favorability level would rise and fall, and they seemed to be temperamental. This bastard's favorability level was stable and stopped at 0. It didn't go up or down. This made Ping Fangyi want to scold him and strangle him. Ping Fangyi's heart was filled with anger. No matter what she did, the favorability level wouldn't go up. She had to force a smile on her face because she wanted to obtain the emperor's heart, the pure love of an emperor. Chapter 23-27. After playing with Noble Lady Ping for a few rounds, Ning Shu wantonly rewarded Noble Lady Ping. He didn't promote her rank, instead, he rewarded her with gold, silver, and jewelry. Anything precious was sent to her palace. Although her rank didn't rise, her monthly salary increased. Ping Fangyi was the most favored person in the harem. When Noble Lady Ping received the things sent by Xiaoyozi, the smile on her face couldn't be maintained. Xiaoyozi was still congratulating Noble Lady Ping for being the first in the harem. Noble Lady Ping's heart exploded like a nuclear bomb. She had the maid take out the money to thank Xiaoyozi. Noble Lady Ping looked at the favorability column. There was a big duck egg. She put her hand on her forehead and fainted. Noble Lady Ping was sick and couldn't serve the emperor. The concubines in the harem wanted to set off firecrackers. Without Noble Lady Ping, their chance came. When Ning Shu heard that Noble Lady Ping was sick, he rushed to Noble Lady Ping's palace. He grabbed Noble Lady Ping's hand and comforted her, "Beloved concubine, don't be afraid. Zhen will definitely let the imperial physician cure you. If they can't cure you, Zhen will let them be buried with you." Ping Fangyi's mouth twitched. If it wasn't for the big duck egg, she would have believed him and thought that he really fell in love with her. The imperial physician at the side. "Emperor, Ping Fangyi just had a bad diet and caught a cold. It's nothing serious." She still had to be buried with him. Even if Ping Fangyi was sick, Ning Shu still stayed by Ping Fangyi's side. He wasn't afraid of the illness at all. The concubines who thought they had a chance ran to the Empress Dowager and cried like dogs. Ping Fangyi was about to go crazy because of this crazy man. It seemed like he was really good to her, but when the favorability rose, he didn't always use her as a target. She couldn't be the target of his true love, right? On the surface, he doted on her and let her attract the fire. Then, the emperor's true love would hide in the corner. She was the clearest about the drama in the harem. After all, to seize the emperor's heart, how could there be no competition in the harem? This time, Ping Fangyi felt that all the concubines in the harem had a chance of being the emperor's true love. Immediately, Ping Fangyi thought about it. A target was a target. At least she could come into contact with the emperor. Her true love was hiding in a corner. Watching her beloved man being affectionate with another woman was heart-wrenching. During the period when Ping Fangyi was sick, Ning Shu stayed in the Empress Dowager's palace all the time. He was not afraid of infecting the Empress Dowager at all. But every time, Ning Shu would neither soften nor harden her anger. The eyes of all the women in the harem turned red, and a strong sense of resentment emanated from the bodies of the imperial concubines. The official who was sent out for disaster relief had been killed. When the news came back, it was said that he had been killed by the mobs who were snatching the food when they were distributing the relief food. He was almost trampled into meat paste. Ning Shu facepalmed and glanced at old General Shen, who was standing in front of him. Old General Shen was unperturbed, as if it had nothing to do with him. Ning Shu stared blankly and said, "I think it's poisonous. Why is it that the people I sent out were either found out or killed? Isn't there an army to maintain order? How did this happen? I beg for forgiveness. It's my fault for not making proper arrangements." Old General Shen knelt down and cupped his fists to beg for forgiveness. This was the result of having no power in his hands. He was controlled by others. As for the truth of the official's death, no one cared. If there was someone, there was hope. But there was no one on hand. Ning Shu seemed to be disheartened. He had someone replace the position of the dead official and let the replacement official continue to provide disaster relief. When the court was dismissed, Ning Shu left behind the official who was going to provide disaster relief. He said, "Minister Su, if you can provide disaster relief this time, do your best to provide disaster relief. Do your best to follow the army and protect your life. At the same time, pay attention to everything around you. Do you understand the underworld? It's more important to get evidence." "Yes, I will remember." Ning Shu said loudly to the door, "Minister Su, I want you to provide disaster relief. The disaster relief money and food are in the hands of the disaster victims. Otherwise, I will hold you responsible." When Su Qingan went out, his face was full of worry. Ning Shu felt that he had good acting skills. In any case, Ning Shu did not know what the Shen family wanted to do. There was a large interest group behind the Shen family. The interest of this group was probably not something the Shen family could control. The Shen family was riding a tiger and it was difficult to get off. The official was impeached and killed. It was all for the interest of the group. They were all in the same boat, forming cliques for personal gain. With the Shen family's current status, there were definitely people who wanted to rely on them. The Shen family had to ensure the interests of the interest group. After the court, Ning Shu began to sleep. While he was sleeping, Ning Shu ran out of the palace again. He wandered around and secretly visited some officials. Ning Shu knew that many eyes were on him, so he changed his appearance. Like a thief, every time before he returned to the palace, he would go to the Shen family and have a meal there before returning home. Of course, it was not just a simple meal. After returning to the palace, the Empress Dowager was waiting for Ning Shu. When she saw Ning Shu, she heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, she also began to reprimand Ning Shu. Ning Shu just listened. As for whether he would do it or not, it was not certain. The Empress Dowager's face was full of powerlessness. She was like an old mother facing her son who had gone astray. No matter how she persuaded, her son would not listen. The Empress Dowager was full of anger. She could not vent it on her son, so she could only vent it on others. Therefore, Ping Fangyi, who was not seriously ill, or even faked her illness, fell sick. Her illness became more serious. She lay in bed and could not get up. Ping Fangyi was speechless. The system detected that she was poisoned. So, she was shot while lying down again. Ping Fangyi had no choice but to lie down like this. The person who harmed her would eventually come out. Ning Shu was like an affectionate emperor. Even if Ping Fangyi was seriously ill, Ning Shu still liked to stay by her side. Right now, Ping Fangyi did not want to see Ning Shu at all. She was sure that this emperor was definitely using her. Otherwise, why didn't her favorability increase at all? Could it be that he was using her to anger the Empress Dowager? Then the poison in her body was the Empress Dowager's masterpiece. Fuck. Ping Fangyi was very anxious in her heart. Her husband's heart was like iron. Was she going to die here this time? Why? Was she not beautiful enough? Was her personality not gentle enough? Or should she change her style? At least when men saw her face, they would at least feel a bit better. Especially some of the beauty-loving emperors. When they saw her face, they would have a good impression of her. Some emperors with stronger self-control would also have a good impression of her. But right now, the favorability did not increase at all. There was also no situation where the favorability decreased. Your Majesty should not stay by this concubine's side. This concubine is fine. Ping Fangyi laughed until she was gnashing her teeth. Her voice was gentle and beautiful. Your Majesty, you should go and see your other sisters. Displeasure appeared on Ning Shu's face. Why do you all say that Chen wants to be fair? But Chen only wants to pamper you. Ping Fangyi, scram. Beauty Liang was very depressed. It seemed that the emperor had been completely bewitched. Soon, the system would leave and her mission would fail. She could not help but ask the system, what should I do now? I have already made a plan. But if you don't follow the plan, there is nothing more important than the mission. If you are erased too many times, you will be completely erased. The system said calmly. Chapter 23-28. The emperor treated Ping Fangyi so well that the imperial concubines in the harem bit their handkerchiefs. They couldn't figure out what was so good about Ping Fangyi that made the emperor treat her so well. Beauty Liang was especially worried and felt extremely pressured. If this continued, Ping Fangyi would get the emperor's heart and leave this world. The strategy system would run away and her system wouldn't be able to devour this system. Now Beauty Liang couldn't care about her chastity and went to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager used the same trick again. She was telling Ning Shu clearly that he had to favor other concubines now. Ning Shu felt that Beauty Liang was quite interesting. She was obviously unwilling but still wanted to force him. Why bother? Ning Shu investigated Beauty Liang's family. It was an ordinary scholarly family. They didn't have much power in the imperial court. The most powerful official in the family was the Ministry of Rights. So, what was Beauty Liang's situation? Ning Shu directly refused. He said that Ping Fangyi was sick now. He didn't have the mood to care for the concubine who was about to leave. If Ping Fangyi was sad now and her illness worsened, he didn't want to live anymore. The Empress Dowager pinched her chopsticks. She thought that she might as well let Ping Fangyi die of illness. The Empress Dowager then said, "Emperor, you are the emperor. You can't favor one woman and can't let others see your obvious preferences." Ning Shu didn't speak. He just looked at the Empress Dowager. Ning Shu felt that this Empress Dowager wasn't smart. In history, Empress Dowager Cixi ruled a dynasty for half a century. Every time the emperor ascended the throne, it was a small radish head. It created an opportunity for Cixi to govern from behind the curtain. However, Cixi didn't put her family in an important position. She didn't give her nephew a high position. Even if she hated Cixi to the core, she didn't have any weakness. She tied her personal interests and the imperial family's interests together to protect the entire dynasty. She dealt with the relationship between her husband's family and her family. She still had to fight with her brothers-in-law. But this Empress Dowager, her relatives monopolized power. She still had power in her hands. Now that the Shen family was powerful, almost the entire imperial court was controlled by the Shen family. The harem was controlled by the women of the Shen family. No one in the imperial court said anything, but that didn't mean that the imperial court officials were convinced. Now, even the babies in the Shen family had an official position. Although it was an idle position, it represented that their status was different from now on. They did not have to go through the hard work of studying to become an official. When things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. He didn't believe that the Shen family didn't understand this. However, retreating might not guarantee their safety. Perhaps the Shen family could only take the risk and fight back. Ning Shu had to guard against the Shen family. "Emperor, Ijia is talking to you. Why are you in a daze?" The Empress Dowager saw Ning Shu staring at her and couldn't help but ask. "Mother, I dreamt of father again." The corners of the Empress Dowager's mouth twitched. She was speechless. The Empress Dowager wanted to hand over her power, but she couldn't predict what would happen after that, especially for the Shen family. Ning Shu held his head and wondered if he should be a thief for a while and steal the military power from the Empress Dowager's hands. How could the Empress Dowager give her a proper reason to steal it? Otherwise, she would be labeled as unfilial. Did he really think that he could do whatever he wanted as the emperor? Ning Shu blinked and looked at the Empress Dowager. "Mother, I hope that you can live a comfortable life. I will support you with the world. I hope that mother can live a long life. You are the blessing of the country." The Empress Dowager smiled. "It's good that the emperor has this intention. I don't ask for anything. I just hope that the emperor can be a good emperor." Ning Shu was speechless. The Shen family liked to play dumb like this. Ning Shu felt impatient. He guessed that the client's heart was in a state of volcanic eruption every day. In the end, Ning Shu simply chose to work in Ping Fangyi's palace. Except for the time when he went to the imperial court, he stayed by Ping Fangyi's side. Ping Fangyi was speechless. Beauty Liang was speechless. The two concubines felt that Ning Shu was seriously ill. Ping Fangyi felt that this man was too difficult to understand. And Beauty Liang felt that the emperor had been fascinated by Ping Fangyi, who had a strategy system. His love was beyond cure. Now they were entangled together. He even had to review memorials in Ping Fangyi's palace. And Lu Jiaoyi, who was grounded, heard that the emperor she admired actually liked a woman so much. He was obviously not close to women. How could he like a woman so much? Why not her? What was the meaning of her transmigration? Wasn't it to advance hand in hand with the emperor, who was trapped in the shallows, to know and protect each other, and finally overlook the prosperous country? Lu Jiaoyi didn't know what she did wrong. She was grounded by the emperor. She could only silently swallow her grievances. Should she go around saying that the emperor framed her? She also didn't know when the emperor would remember her. Lu Jiaoyi couldn't think of any way to help the emperor get through this difficult time. Ning Shu was like this every day. After the imperial court, he went to Ping Fangyi's palace and forced Ping Fangyi to get up from the bed. She said to Ning Shu, "Emperor, Qinxia's illness is better. Emperor, you don't have to stay by Qinxia's side every day. Why don't you rest more? Your body is important." Ning Shu said gently. Ping Fangyi had a gentle and generous smile on her face. However, she was roaring in her heart. You want to anger the Empress Dowager, but the Empress Dowager took out her anger on you. It was difficult to be a concubine, especially when the emperor had a heart of stone that couldn't be hidden. If the favorability didn't increase a bit, Ping Fangyi felt very uneasy. She had been here for so long, but there was no progress. Could it be that she was going to die here this time? She was going to stay in the imperial palace for the rest of her life. For her, the imperial palace was just a trip that she could take whenever she wanted. It was a place to rest and a place to settle down after completing a mission. After Ping Fangyi got better, Ning Shu didn't accompany her every day. However, he still held Ping Fangyi at the top of his heart. If he had nothing to do, he would reward her with a bunch of things. If he had nothing to do, he would stroll around the garden and press the stone road. However, Ping Fangyi felt more and more despair. What kind of man was this? Why couldn't he give her a heart? Why couldn't he like her? If she didn't obtain the emperor's heart, how could she leave the terrifying imperial harem? It had been a long time, but the favorability didn't increase a bit. Up until now, she had been poisoned several times. There were concubines who secretly harmed her, and there was also the Empress Dowager. She didn't know if the Empress was among them. The Empress rarely came out. Her presence wasn't as strong as the Empress Dowager's, but the Empress Dowager was still in charge of the imperial harem. She really wanted to obtain the emperor's heart and leave this place. Leave this fire pit. No, this was a sinkhole. The system had reminded her more than once that she didn't have much time and asked her to speed up. However, she had already used a lot of methods, but the favorability didn't increase. What could she do? In short, she was very desperate. She was so desperate that she wanted to hug the emperor and perish together with him. What's wrong with you giving me a heart? Chapter 23-29. Can you die if you like me? So what if you love me? Ping Fangyi was full of resentment, but when Ning Shu turned around, she had a tranquil smile on her face. Ning Shu also smiled, and Ping Fangyi smiled at each other. From Ping Fangyi, he didn't feel any love or affection. She used her cold heart to ask for the sincerity of others. It was fine to cheat a fool, but she actually cheated the emperor who didn't lack women and wanted to get the sincerity. Sincerity was a good thing. The power of the heart was very mysterious and powerful. For example, the power of faith, the heart of true love, and so on. Especially the emperor, his fate was very strong. Under the heavens, all the land belonged to the emperor. All the generals who led the army were the emperor's subjects. The world was under the control of the emperor. How much fate and merit did one have to become an emperor? The emperor's heart of true love and admiration. How much power did it contain? Ping Fangyi saw Ning Shu's smile, and her whole body shivered. Until the time set by the system was up, she still couldn't complete the mission of conquering the emperor. Her mission failed. Ping Fangyi felt that everything was going smoothly before, but why did she fail this time? Could it be that the Emperor didn't like women? 2333, the system over there is about to break away. Oh, I thought you were in a daze. Ning Shu arrived at Ping Fangyi's palace. Ping Fangyi was waiting for the system's punishment, hoping that the system would give her another chance. Ping Fangyi actually wanted to leave this world. She felt an unprecedented frustration here. She suspected that her charm was useless, and all her psychological attacks were useless. Her useless beauty was also useless. This wasn't a man, but a eunuch. Even if he was a eunuch, his root was gone, but his thoughts were still there. Ping Fangyi didn't want to entertain Ning Shu at all. She lied on the bed and said that she wasn't feeling well. Ning Shu said that it was fine and that he would guard her. Ping Fangyi's body trembled. In a situation where the discussion was fruitless, her system was about to break away from her. It was about to throw her into this strange era, a terrifying harem. 2333, when the system broke away from Ping Fangyi, it instantly started to attack the system. Ping Fangyi held her head and groaned in pain. She felt that her soul was about to explode. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. Could it be that this system also wanted to absorb Ping Fangyi's soul? Many systems would squeeze all the value out of the host when they left, even taking away the host's soul. Ning Shu felt an invisible shockwave sweeping out from the battle. All kinds of antiques on the shelf fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Ning Shu looked at the pained Ping Fangyi with a horrified expression and asked, "What happened? What's wrong with you? Why are you in so much pain? Is there a ghost in your bedroom?" Ping Fangyi held her head, the veins on her forehead popping out. She gritted her teeth and said, "How would I know?" After a period of time, the turmoil finally calmed down. Ning Shu said to Ping Fangyi, who was sweating profusely, "We need to find a sorcerer to exorcise the evil." "Your palace," Ping Fangyi didn't say anything. She was already staring at the top of the bed. Ning Shu sighed and turned to leave. When he was out of the bedroom, he said to 2333, "It's done." "Oh, it's done." This system chose a host as a vessel and then swallowed the original soul in the body. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. That meant that the original soul in the body had been swallowed. This was a bit interesting. Swallowing your soul, using your body to seduce the emperor and seize the emperor's heart. After seizing the emperor's heart, the system would quickly run away. Without a soul, the body would naturally die. He wondered how many worlds this system had visited. "System, someone beat me to it," Beauty Liang's system said in a deep voice. After listening carefully, it sounded a bit dissatisfied. "What?" Beauty Liang was suddenly surprised and asked, "How is this possible? Could there be other mission enforcers here? I felt the shockwave from the battle before. It should be the system. There should be other mission enforcers here." The system sorted out all the people that Beauty Liang had seen. The Empress Dowager, the Emperor, and the concubines of the various palaces. It analyzed who could be the mission enforcer and seized the strategy system before him. The system was a bit helpless. This system should be extremely good. It would constantly search for a host and help the host find a body. Seizing the emperor's heart was better than seizing the hearts of 100 people. Moreover, the system would absorb the host and the soul of the owner of the body. What a pity. Then who could be the mission enforcer? Beauty Liang frowned and asked. The system said coldly, "What do you think?" "I'm afraid it's the emperor." "Sigh, I'm sorry. I originally came here to do the system's mission, but I didn't expect there to be other mission enforcers. I even lost the system so that you can't swallow the system." Beauty Liang was apologetic and blamed herself. "System, it's a small matter. However, please complete the mission properly. If the completion rate of 60% or 70% is too high, you will be wiped out. It's not for me but for your own life. Please complete the mission properly. The system said. Beauty Liang saw that the system had forgiven her and immediately promised, the next time I do the system's mission, I will work harder so that you can successfully swallow the system. Next time, I will do whatever you ask me to do. Sorry. The system just nodded. You can find a chance to test the mission enforcer. If the missions don't conflict, we can work together. Okay. Coming out of Ping Fangyi's palace, Ning Shu walked in the Imperial Garden. 2333 said, when I was fighting with the system just now, someone came in. It seems that there are other mission enforcers in this palace who wanted to take advantage of the situation. However, the system was taken away by me so he could only watch. 2333's tone had a hint of schadenfreude. Hearing that there were mission enforcers, Ning Shu first thought of the awkward Beauty Liang. If Beauty Liang was a mission enforcer, then her previous actions could be explained. He didn't know what the other's mission was. What if it conflicted with his own mission? What level of world is this? Ning Shu asked. Intermediate. Intermediate was actually so messy. She didn't know if the other party was a mission enforcer like her who did all kinds of worlds, or an intermediate mission enforcer. However, she had to find a chance to test it out. Under the circumstances where both parties were interested, Ning Shu and Beauty Liang sat on the same table. Ning Shu looked at Beauty Liang. Beauty Liang looked at Ning Shu generously. Your Majesty. Speak. Ning Shu said while drinking tea. You are a mission enforcer, right? Beauty Liang asked directly. Ning Shu ambiguously hummed. Even if he was sure that the other party was a mission enforcer, Ning Shu wouldn't be too friendly. After all, even if they were from the same company and organization, they were strangers. He had to be vigilant during the mission. Chapter 2330. When Ning Shu did things, she would not admit it if she could. She did not want to leave any evidence behind. Beauty Liang felt Ning Shu's cold expression, and her enthusiasm faded a little. She said, What is your mission? My mission is to deal with Ping Fangyi. This is the client's wish. Then what about your mission? What do you think my mission is? Ning Shu asked, Whatever you want to do, I have no opinion. This sentence was to tell Beauty Liang that there was no conflict between missions. Beauty Liang still wanted to say something, but the system probably said something to her, so she kept her mouth shut. Beauty Liang raised her teacup and clinked it with Ning Shu's teacup. She smiled and said, Then let's work together happily. Ning Shu just curled his lips and didn't say anything. Anyway, she didn't lose anything. The heart-snatching system had been absorbed by 2333. Another problem had been solved. As for the fight between this mission enforcer and Ping Fangyi, Ning Shu didn't care. The next thing was to solve the Shen family's problem. Only by taking down the Shen family could he have great power. Beauty Liang saw that Ning Shu was about to leave. She hesitated and said to Ning Shu, Can I ask you for a favor? Say it. Since there was no conflict, he would help if he could. But if it hindered him, sorry, he couldn't help. Can you stay for a night? Beauty Liang said. Ning Shu felt that this girl, or man, should be relatively new. Maybe it was just a facade. Ning Shu immediately raised his eyebrows. If you stay, aren't you afraid of something happening? After all, now that he had a body, he could feel the joy of sex. When Beauty Liang heard this, she immediately showed a resistant expression. If it was just a mission enforcer, she wouldn't be willing to leave this world. But now it was an internal member of the organization. It felt like an office rape. How awkward would it be if they met in the future? If the other party spread it everywhere, how bad would it be? Because Ning Shu was currently in a man's body, Beauty Liang also believed that Ning Shu was a man. When she heard that something was going to happen, Beauty Liang panicked, especially under the system's gaze. Beauty Liang could not do such a thing with another man. Ning Shu was a little surprised to see Beauty Liang in such a dilemma. This mission enforcer was probably the most cautious person Ning Shu had ever seen. How did someone with such a personality choose to become a mission enforcer? Ning Shu understood Beauty Liang's thoughts. The emperor slept in his palace for a night. This was a favor. Actually, she was overthinking things. After dealing with the system in Ping Fangyi's body, she would not care about Ping Fangyi anymore. If Ping Fangyi could stay in the harem, it would be fine. As for whether she could stay or not, it would depend on how many worlds Ping Fangyi had traversed and how many methods she had used to win the hearts of the emperors. Ping Fangyi's system chose to leave so early because it smelled danger. Liang Meidede could deal with Ping Fangyi, there was no need for her to add flowers to the brocade. After all, Ping Fangyi was about to fall out of favor. Then I'll be leaving. Ning Shu flicked his sleeves and left. Who told you to make the decision to let him stay? Even if Beauty Liang's system was scolding people, it still had a lingering feeling that was hard to refuse. Hearing the system's words, Beauty Liang smiled brightly. So it was jealous? He took away the most valuable thing on Ping Fangyi's body. What else does Ping Fangyi have that is worthy of his attention? The system sighed, Gu Yi, you have many methods. You know medicine and hypnotism. Why don't you use these skills? Also, as a mission enforcer, you don't need to be so weak in front of him. Gu Yi stuck out her tongue, didn't I forget? I will pay attention next time. Besides, I still have you, to give me hints. The system did not speak. Ning Shu returned to his palace and familiarized himself with it. He lay on the bed and began to cultivate the peerless martial arts. Perhaps it was because the body of the peerless martial arts was damaged. Ning Shu felt that cultivating the peerless martial arts was not as smooth as before. It was also not as fast as before. The spiritual energy in ancient times could barely form qi, but the qi formed was not as strong as before. The destruction of the peerless martial arts had a bigger impact than she had imagined. Not only was the construction of the world delayed indefinitely, even the cultivation itself had problems. She had to use more of her soul to repair the world. That night, the harem was not peaceful at all. Many people had a lot on their minds. Gu Yi was happy and worried. She was happy that Ping Fangyi had finally fallen out of favor. She could now deal with Ping Fangyi. She was worried because she had done the mission for the system, but she did not expect the system to be absorbed by someone else. She felt that she had let down her own system. Ever since she became a mission enforcer, it had always been the system that reminded her. He was both a teacher and a friend, and the two of them were bound together. They had to support each other and continue to walk together. This was indeed a beautiful relationship. Gu Yi had a good impression of this invisible system, mainly because it was very stable with him around. Ping Fangyi repeatedly confirmed that the system had really left her. She could not help but cover her head with the blanket and cry. She did not want to stay in the palace. The flowers in the lonely palace were blooming. Her youth was about to wither in this harem. Ping Fangyi was absolutely unwilling. How many people had been buried in this harem? How many skeletons were there in this harem? It was originally a trip that could be left as soon as one said to leave. She could leave once she obtained the emperor's heart. But now, she had to stay here for a long time. Ping Fangyi was so scared that her whole body was trembling. She was afraid of the harem in the imperial palace. Because she had seen many of them, she knew that she was even more afraid of the demons and monsters in this harem. She was relying on the fact that she would not stay here forever. Once she obtained the emperor's heart, she would leave and die. She would become the eternal white moonlight and cinnabar mole in the emperor's heart. Death would make the emperor's heart purer. It would also make the emperor remember her in his heart forever. If the emperor wanted her, even if he had a good impression of her, it would be fine. But after the system left, the emperor's good impression of her had stopped at zero. There was no good feeling or love at all. There was not even a little bit of like. How could she survive in this harem? There was also the Empress Dowager. Previously, the emperor doted on her so much that sand had already entered the Empress Dowager's eyes. Ping Fangyi's eyes were red as she analyzed her situation. She discovered that her situation was not ordinary. Without the system, she might not even know if she was poisoned to death. There was also a group of concubines. Previously, the emperor's doting caused her to attract a large wave of hatred. Now, each and every one of them wanted to step on her. If it was said that Ping Fangyi was in a state of contempt for the concubines in the harem and did not care about them, she was in a state where she would ascend and leave at any time. But now, she could not be willful. Now that she thought about it, her situation. Chapter 23:31. These lonely women in the palace would do anything for the emperor. Torturing others, torturing themselves, torturing their children. They would use whatever they could. Ping Fangyi cried as she wrapped herself in the quilt and shivered. She was extremely worried about her future. Being thrown in this kind of dynasty, she might become a member buried in the harem. Now, it seemed like she could only place her hopes on the emperor. She hoped that he would dote on her like before. But if he did, the Empress Dowager would kill her. She should cultivate her body and mind when she was old. Don't think about killing people when you have nothing to do. The darkness ahead made Ping Fangyi unable to take a step forward. She was so scared that she lost the courage to face everything. It made Ping Fangyi want to end her life first, but she was unwilling. In the harem, there were many servants. But she had to fight and continue fighting. Moreover, Ping Fangyi did not know if she could return to her previous life after she died and start a peaceful life. In the past, she did not feel anything when she wandered around the world. With the system, she could see all kinds of male gods. She did not feel that there was anything wrong with her life. But now, Ping Fangyi only wanted to be an ordinary person and live peacefully. Ever since he subdued the system, Ning Shu rarely went to the harem. The only person he cared about in the harem was Ping Fangyi. Now that everything was settled, he did not need to care about Ping Fangyi. Ping Fangyi treated the harem as child's play. But the harem taught her the cruel truth. He did not dote on Ping Fangyi anymore. He also did not reward Ping Fangyi with anything. He also did not call Ping Fangyi in front of him. Therefore, it was unrealistic to hope for the emperor's true feelings. After all, he only needed to hook his finger and there would be many women. They would not cherish things that were easily obtained. During this period, there were only a few words about the flood in Pengzhou. Moreover, they were all vague. They did not know the specific situation in Pengzhou. Ning Shu was furious in the imperial court and asked how Pengzhou was. Old General Shen only asked Ning Shu to wait. Maybe the news was too late and the emperor was waiting. What was there to wait for? Ning Shu saw that after Old General Shen spoke, the court became quiet. The ministers lowered their heads and did not speak. Occasionally, they would even mention something unrelated. It didn't matter that the Empress Dowager controlled the state affairs, but she only grasped the power and did not fulfill the duties of the power. Every time she did something, the Empress Dowager would lecture her. Even if she was his biological mother, she was too impatient. What a scam! The Empress Dowager's attitude was very vague. He could not figure out what she wanted to do. She wanted the Shen family to rebel, but she did not seem to have this intention. But now that the master was weak and the servants were strong, it would be strange if there were no problems. Ning Shu did not shy away from cursing in the Xuanda Hall after the morning court session. He cursed as he read the memorials. It was to reach the ears of the Empress Dowager. She did not know whether the Empress Dowager wanted to protect the imperial power or the Shen family. The Empress Dowager and the Empress Dowager were the same. They mediated in the middle but could not solve the problem substantively. Once the emperor got angry, it seemed that he did not like anything. He did not go to the harem. This made Ping Fangyi suffer. The first to change their attitude were the servants in Ping Fangyi's harem. When the master was favored, the servants would have a future. Now that Ping Fangyi had clearly fallen from favor, these servants became lazy. They procrastinated when doing things. Some of the servants had already looked for other branches. Ping Fangyi saw this and was very angry. She did not know how many things she rewarded these servants before, but now these people left without any reluctance. Her personal palace maid comforted Ping Fangyi, saying that the emperor was now worried about the flood in Pingzhou and had no time to go to the harem. When the emperor was free, according to his previous attitude of doting on her master, he would definitely come back to see her. Ping Fangyi's heart was full of thoughts. She was waiting for a man's pity. All the honor and disgrace were tied to a man. This made Ping Fangyi feel very pitiful, but she had to look forward to it. Otherwise, the days in the harem would be too difficult. Especially when someone deliberately made things difficult for her. The charcoal fire was getting less and less, and the food was getting simpler. It was clearly winter, but there was a flood in Pingzhou. Then the dam burst. Not only did people starve to death, they also froze to death. There were corpses everywhere. If these corpses were not handled properly, an epidemic would occur. There were people among the people who said that the current emperor was incompetent. It was the emperor's fault, so the heavens punished him. When Ning Shu heard this rumor, he glanced at the Qin family. Using this kind of method to attack an emperor who desperately wanted to be in power. Perhaps there was a bit of kinship in this. The Qin family had no choice but to do this. Even if the Qin family did not do it, the officials and interest groups behind the Qin family had to push the Qin family to do it. They probably wanted to use this kind of method to warn the emperor. Was it not good to be an emperor peacefully? If they caused trouble, they would not even be able to be a puppet emperor. After Ning Shu left court, he smashed everything in the room that could be smashed. The Empress Dowager probably understood this in her heart and did not appear in front of Ning Shu. Ning Shu closed the door and smashed things expressionlessly. After smashing, he immediately reduced the expenses of the harem. He said that the victims of the disaster in Pingzhou were in an abyss of suffering. Everyone had to be more frugal and donate as much as they could. Ning Shu took the lead and had the Empress Dowager and Empress donate money. Following the example of their superiors, the concubines in the harem more or less took out some things, hoping to show their faces in front of the emperor. Ping Fangyi took out all the things that Ning Shu had rewarded her before. Then she looked at Ning Shu with a pair of eyes full of affection. Ning Shu looked away and met a pair of eyes that said, I understand everything. Lu Jiaoyi, who was grounded, came out to cause trouble again. Beauty Liang symbolically donated some silver and jewelry. After that, Ning Shu sent a large number of doctors to Pingzhou, as well as all kinds of medicinal herbs and cotton-padded clothes. In this world, he did not know if the power of law could be used. Since it was a flood, then if the law of water could be used, it would be fine to evaporate the water. Ning Shu wanted to make the water flow backwards, but it was too shocking. Moreover, whether it could be used or not was a problem. He tried it. The power of law could be used, but the restrictions were too great. Ning Shu evaporated a vat of water. However, Pingzhou was too far away from here. He did not know if the power of law could reach there and not be blocked by the Tao of heaven. Ning Shu closed his eyes and felt the water flow, lakes, and rivers in the direction of Pingzhou. Finally, he felt the water gushing out of Pingzhou. He first lowered the surging water and then began to evaporate the water. Once the water started to evaporate, a shoddy construction would appear. It would be best to investigate who built the dam. With the power of law, the water would slowly evaporate. Ning Shu stretched his neck and waited for news from Su Qinggan. He had been gone for so long, but there was not a single word. Could it be that Su Qinggan had been assassinated? He said that it did not matter if he sided with the Shen family when necessary. Chapter 2332. Ning Shu didn't want unyielding officials who wouldn't wallow in the mire. What he needed now were officials who were smart and could get things done. If possible, Ning Shu wanted to sneak into the Shen family. It was time for the Empress Dowager to be sick for a while and enjoy her old age. Ning Shu lost his temper every day because of the flood in Pengzhou. Su Qing'an's letter finally reached Ning Shu's hands. It was Ning Shu herself who went out of the palace to get it from the beggar clan. The letter was very thick. There was also a book full of deals made by the officials. Ning Shu was indifferent to all kinds of benefits. When he returned to the palace, Ning Shu went to the Empress Dowager's palace and gave the things to her. I can be a puppet emperor. If you want to control the court, I will pretend I don't have the ability. But your Shen family is a domestic rat. You dig up the world's people to enrich yourself. The officials who do this business and the income from these officials do their best to rob the people. The world only knows about the Shen family and not the emperor. Ning Shu looked coldly at the Empress Dowager. If you manage the country well, I have nothing to say. But you tell me to be a good emperor every day. Why don't you take care of your own family? Your Majesty, someone is framing you. Who is it? Remove them from their post and investigate. This kind of evidence can be made up by anyone. The Shen family is loyal to you, the Empress Dowager said with a frown. Ning Shu, I'd be stupid to tell you. Mother, give me the Jingdo Imperial Guard's commander's seal and I will let the Shen family go, Ning Shu said. Your Majesty. I don't want to hear nonsense. You know what your Shen family is like. Don't quibble. Ning Shu said, isn't it good for you to enjoy your old age? Your Majesty, you should understand why I don't give you the commander's seal. The Empress Dowager's face was bitter. I understand. Once I have power, I will fight with the Shen family. Thank you for thinking of me. Ning Shu said, Mother, you are sick. Stay in the palace for a while. I hope you can live a long life. Let me be filial to you. Your Majesty. The Empress Dowager didn't take the commander's seal. Ning Shu paid no attention to the Empress Dowager. He went to the Empress Dowager's bed, lifted the cup, and uncovered a wooden plank of the bed, revealing a box. Inside the box was the commander's seal. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to see that there was a box in the bed. Under the Empress Dowager's horrified eyes, Ning Shu took the commander's seal and scanned it with his spiritual force. He knew every corner of the room. Your Majesty, you have been waiting for this day for a long time. That day will definitely come. Your Majesty, you said you would let the Shen family go. Empress Dowager Ning Shu said. Don't worry, but I still need Imperial Mother to say something in court. Ning Shu put away the letter book and left the Empress Dowager's palace. Along the way, he met the Empress. The Empress bowed to Ning Shu. Ning Shu did not say anything and walked around the Empress. The Empress's heart trembled. She felt that something had happened and hurried to the Empress Dowager's palace. However, she was stopped and told that the Empress Dowager was sick. The Empress obviously felt that something was wrong and quickly informed the Shen family. Ning Shu also informed the Shen family that the Empress Dowager was sick and they should go to the palace to see the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager was the standard figure of the Shen family. Now that she was sick, the Shen family naturally had to go to the palace to see her. The Empress always felt that something was wrong. What was that scum's conspiracy? Old General Shen and General Shen both entered the palace to see the sick Empress Dowager. Old General Shen and General Shen were now the pillars of the Shen family. They had to unload their weapons when they entered the palace. If something happened to them in the palace, it would be bad. Old General Shen felt that he was old, so he took the lead. If he died, there would be young people behind him who could support the Shen family. The Shen family did not know that the emperor was afraid of them, but some things could not be done easily. If they handed over the military power, some things would be revealed. The Shen family would be unarmed and waiting to be executed. What's more, if you want to condemn someone, you will always have a pretext. It was hard to stop halfway. Old General Shen walked into the hall and heard the coughing sound of the Empress Dowager. He cupped his fist and saluted to ask how she was. The Empress Dowager's coughing could not be suppressed. After saying a few words, she started coughing. She could not even speak coherently. Old General Shen was very worried. He was very worried about his daughter. After that, the other members of the Shen family came to see the Empress Dowager. There was no situation of imprisoning her in the palace. They did not imprison anyone in the Shen family. They even stayed for dinner. When they thought the emperor would make things difficult, Ning Shu had them go back. During the morning court, Ning Shu said worriedly, "I feel that the heavens might really blame us. Pengzhou had a flood, and now mother is sick. This is a warning from the heavens. Therefore, I have decided to offer a sacrifice to the heavens and write an obituary to apologize to the heavens." Therefore, Ning Shu had the Ministry of Rites prepare the various matters of the sacrifice. General Shen's uncle cupped his hand to Ning Shu and said, "Then I will be responsible for the order of the sacrifice and let it end smoothly." "Then I will have to trouble you, uncle." Since it was a sacrifice to the heavens, then the emperor and empress had to offer the sacrifice together. Ning Shu went to the Empress Dowager's palace and told her to make preparations. Otherwise, if anything went wrong during the sacrifice, the heavens would blame them. The empress knew that the emperor's reputation among the people was very bad. Many people believed the rumors and blamed him for the flood and the deaths of the victims in Pengzhou. Using this method to clear his name, the empress felt that it would be better if something went wrong during the sacrifice. It would solidify the reputation of an incapable ruler who was condemned by the heavens. The Ministry of Rites quickly prepared the matters of the sacrifice and chose the best day for the sacrifice. On the day of the sacrifice, the air was clear and bright, but it was a bit cold. Ning Shu wore a dragon robe and a crown on his head. It was very grand. The empress wore the empress's palace attire. She was very graceful and luxurious. She walked with Ning Shu up the steps to the altar. The empress bit her lip. She wanted to roll down the steps and cause something to happen during the sacrifice. The empress's foot slipped and she was about to fall. Ning Shu grabbed her arm and held her steadily. The empress's expression was a little painful. Ning Shu grabbed her arm as if he was going to break it. It was impossible for her to roll down the steps. The empress turned to look at the cold side profile of the man beside her. This man's heart was as hard as iron. He only had power in his heart. "Dog Emperor, hand over your life. You don't have the right to be the emperor. You might as well abdicate." A guard with a special voice jumped out and stabbed Ning Shu with his sword. This cry gave everyone present a fright, and they hurriedly shouted for protection. Ning Shu shook off the empress's arm. The empress fell to the ground and dodged the assassin's attack. In a flash, Ning Shu was held down by the guard with a knife at his neck. "Warrior, what grudge do I have with you?" Ning Shu asked angrily. "You incapable ruler. What right do you have to be the emperor? You should quickly abdicate and give it to General Shen." General Shen was speechless. Where did this idiot come from? His acting skills were too clumsy. General Shen instantly knew that the Shen family had been framed. Chapter 23-33. He just needed to train his acting skills a bit. Other than having a loud voice, there was nothing else. Where did this assassin come from? Don't try to sow discord between the emperor and this official. Not only are we emperor and official, we are also blood-related relatives. General Chen immediately retorted. Ning Shu repeatedly said, yes, Chen believes in uncle. General Chen, you saved my family. I have no way to repay you. I can only kill this incapable ruler and clear the obstacles for Chen family. The guard excitedly said. Standing on the high steps of the altar, his voice spread from all directions. Ning Shu felt that his eardrums were about to be pierced. Fuck, clear the obstacles. General Chen felt that something was wrong. He couldn't let this guard who came out of nowhere speak nonsense. The surrounding officials were discussing spiritedly. General Chen subconsciously shouted, release the arrows. General, the emperor is still up there, and there is also the empress. An official reminded. The emperor was the leader of his subjects. If he really wanted to kill the emperor, his heart still didn't dare. General Chen was riding a tiger and it was hard to get off. That loud guard was still howling at the top of his lungs, saying something about longevity. He really put Chen family on the fire to roast. Ning Shu's face was first stupefied, then shocked, then in disbelief. Finally, with a sad face, he called out to General Chen, uncle. Ning Shu's acting skills were definitely several levels higher than the guard who was howling behind him. He looked like he had been betrayed and wronged. The empress who was pushed to the ground by Ning Shu pulled out a dagger from her sleeve and suddenly stabbed towards the assassin's back. The guard groaned and held on to Ning Shu even more tightly. His arms circled around Ning Shu's neck. The sword was close to his skin and blood flowed out. The guard's blade was a bit trembling. Ning Shu felt a bit of pain in his neck. You piece of trash. Ben Gong told you to kill this incapable ruler, but I never told you to frame the Chen family. The Chen family has been loyal to the Murong family for generations. The empress held the dagger that was dripping with blood. The hatred that she had been suppressing exploded. There was a strong gloomy aura around her body. She didn't look like a graceful and luxurious empress. Instead, she looked like a resentful woman, a female ghost filled with resentment. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes. Why do you want to hurt me? Could it be that you don't know, Your Majesty? This concubine hates you for being heartless and heartless. This concubine hates you for being an incapable ruler who forgets favors and violates justice. This concubine wants to kill you to relieve the hatred in my heart. The empress chuckled. It was I who sent this guard to kill you, you heartless person. Why do you favor the concubines in your harem but never come to see me? I was your wife when we were young. Why are you so cruel and heartless? I'm going to kill you. The empress seemed to have gone mad. General Chen hurriedly knelt down and shouted, Emperor, please punish me. It is this official's fault that the Chen family raised such a rebellious daughter. The empress took the dagger and stabbed it into her own neck. Her eyes were lifeless as she stared at Ning Shu. I hate you. I want to turn into a ghost so that you will never have peace. General Chen couldn't help but close his eyes. He couldn't bear to watch anymore. He knew that his daughter sacrificed herself to protect the Chen family. This matter changed from a rebellion to a jealous wife who wanted to kill her husband. The nature was different. The empress was ready to die. The dagger was about to pierce into her neck when an arrow shot over. The dagger in the empress's hand fell to the ground. Of course, the empress's hand was also injured. It was bleeding profusely. Everyone reflexively looked at the person who shot the arrow. The commander of the Imperial Guards was sitting on the back of a horse with a bow in his hand. He turned over and got off the horse. The Imperial Guards behind him surrounded the entire altar. General, the Empress Dowager sent this official to see what's wrong with the sacrifice. The commander of the Imperial Guards walked in front of General Chen and cupped his hands. Zhen was kidnapped. Ning Shu tried to make his presence known. At this time, shouldn't he take a look at this emperor? The guard who kidnapped Ning Shu behind him seemed to be possessed by a drama queen. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "General, this is the only thing this official can do for you. Kill this incapable ruler. This official will repay the general with his life." General Chen really wanted to shout. "Who the hell are you?" The commander of the Imperial Guards touched the sword at his waist and said to General Chen, "General, the only thing we can do now is to kill that assassin." General Chen knew that the Imperial Guards were his Empress Dowager's sister's people. He shook his head and said, "We can't. Right now, the Emperor is still being held hostage by him. If the Emperor was really killed, then wouldn't the Shen family's plan to usurp the throne be confirmed?" General Chen's eyes were unfathomable. He looked at Ning Shu's face and ordered, "Follow me to kill the assassin. Don't hurt the Emperor." "General, don't worry. This official will kill this dog emperor for you. Kill this incapable ruler who brought calamity to the people of the world." The guard held Ning Shu's neck with one hand and held the sword with the other to fight with the guards who were rushing over. "Brothers, follow this general to protect the emperor. The Shen family wants to rebel. The empress wants to murder the emperor. General Chen wants to murder the emperor." The commander of the Imperial Guards suddenly shouted. In addition, the Imperial Guards that came before had already surrounded the altar. Even the civil and military officials inside were blocked. In the chaos, many officials were injured. If it wasn't their legs, then it was their faces. The more serious ones died on the spot. General Chen was stunned. He shouted at the commander of the Imperial Guards, "General Li Yue, what do you mean? Saving the emperor is more important. Audacious Shen family, you want to usurp the throne." The commander of the Imperial Guards called out to the Imperial Guards. The two families started fighting. "Emperor, you are so ruthless." The Empress, who was lying on the altar, used her injured hand to grab Ning Shu's ankle. She raised her head and looked at Ning Shu, "You planned all of this." He thought that he would be able to change things once again. Compared to his previous life when he framed the Shen family and searched for evidence of the Shen family's usurpation of the throne with great fanfare, the emperor in this life had once again devised this plan. It was just as sinister. Ning Shu didn't speak. He felt the blood soaking his ankle. Facing the Empress's hateful eyes, he was indifferent. The Empress's eyes dimmed. "What is your heart made of?" "Emperor, the Shen family was wronged. The Shen family has never done anything wrong to you. Why do you want to frame the Shen family like this? How can I allow others to sleep beside my bed?" Ning Shu said. "You really don't care about kinship at all. Your Majesty, the Shen family is also your family. They are your maternal grandfather, your uncle." The Empress pleaded with Ning Shu, "Your Majesty, Qinxia is begging you." Ning Shu sighed, "I ate too much, that's why I put in so much effort. What do you think is the root of this matter?" The guard holding Ning Shu saw that General Chen had been caught. He let go of Ning Shu and ran while shouting, "General, this little one will avenge you." Then he disappeared. General Chen's hands were caught. He put them behind his back and knelt on the ground. He didn't struggle. He looked at Ning Shu on the high platform and said, "The child has grown up, but his methods are really despicable." Chapter 23-34. It didn't matter if the method was despicable or not, the important thing was that it was useful. The Empress crawled on the ground, her hands covered in blood. She grabbed Ning Shu's ankle and raised her head to look at Ning Shu. She seemed to be shedding tears of blood as she spoke. "But Emperor, the Chen family has been handed over. How can the Emperor let the Chen family go? The Chen family is only doing this to protect themselves. Just like Emperor, you only have power in your heart. You have a heart of stone. Isn't it for the supreme power? The Chen family is holding on to power to protect themselves. Ning Shu was a bit annoyed. Of course Zhen is also doing this to protect myself. Zhen is just a puppet. Whenever Zhen is dissatisfied, Zhen will be kicked off the throne. You know that the Qin family won't. The Empress said while crying blood. Ning Shu helped the Empress up and faced her. If not, Zhen wouldn't have to offer sacrifices to the heavens to confess. Because Zhen is an incompetent emperor, the heavens are blaming me. Do you understand the meaning of these words? If not for these rumors, she would have to offer sacrifices to the heavens and ask for forgiveness. She would say that she wasn't a qualified emperor. Then, the Empress Dowager was coincidentally sick. As a filial emperor, she had to pray for her mother. The Empress cried, "Emperor, what do you want Qinxia to do? One is my family, and you are Qinxia's husband." Ning Shu, what could they do? One wanted to take back power, and the other didn't want to let go. So, it was normal for them to fight. General Chen was detained by the imperial guards. As for the sacrifice to the heavens, it was over. Not even a sentence of the obituary was read. Many officials were injured. As for how long they would need to recuperate, it was unknown. The coffin shops and doctors in the capital were the busiest. Ning Shu was very generous to these recuperating officials. He let the imperial doctors in the palace treat them. As for General Chen, Ning Shu placed him in the palace and didn't directly throw him into prison. The reason was that there were still many suspicious points in this matter. So, they had to investigate clearly and not wrongly accuse the Qin family. Those who didn't know would think that the Qin family was favored. General Chen was locked in the palace like an iron cage. Like the Empress, he couldn't take a step out. Moreover, the Empress's act of regicide was witnessed by many eyes. It was irrefutable evidence. Even if Ning Shu didn't say anything, those stubborn imperial censors who couldn't tolerate sand in their eyes would definitely report to impeach the Empress. Ning Shu's report was written is his injuries. Since they were injured, they had to recuperate. Someone's job and they would take their position and work. He gave them a large sum of money. Ning Shu suppressed the Qin family's matter. He didn't say what he would do, only that it was still being investigated. Even this matter, Ning Shu only said that it was matter between husband and wife. She would have taken care of it herself. The Empress Dowager dragged her sickly body and coughed until her back was hunched. She walked in front of Ning Shu and started to cry. Ning Shu reached out and patted her back. The Empress Dowager's voice was a bit hoarse. "Emperor, Ijia. Muhu, don't worry." Ning Shu said, "There are some words that you still need to say in front of the court's civil and military officials." "What do you want Ijia to say?" The Empress Dowager coughed. Her lips were dry and pale. Ning Shu gently patted the Empress Dowager's back as he said, "Muhu, you know. In the end, it's the Qin family. Zhen can't bear to touch them." The Empress Dowager's back was slightly hunched. Ijia knew tis would'ves. Something like this must happen. It would be abnormal if it didn't. Any emperor with a bit of courage would want to not be controlled by others. Of course, it didn't exclude those emperors who only wanted to play around and enjoy life. As long as there was wine, food, and women, everything would be fine. The next day, the Empress Dowager went to court with him. The Empress Dowager said, "Now that the emperor has grown up, he has a clear mind. In the future, the matters of the court will be discussed with the emperor. There is no need to find Ijia. The matters of the court will all be decided by the emperor." The Empress Dowager spoke for a long time and was a bit tired. She stopped and coughed twice. Under Ning Shu's gaze, she said, "When the time comes, the Qin family will also hand over their military power." There was an uproar in the court. Old General Chen, who was standing at the front, swayed a bit. He seemed to have aged a lot. He was like an old man with one foot in the grave. Ning Shu immediately said, "Grandfather has worked hard to guard the border and made great contributions." Zhen bestows upon him a gold medallion. "Thank you, Your Majesty. But I don't have the medallion with me." Old General Chen thought of his son who was imprisoned in the palace. Now that the Empress Dowager had spoken, there was no turning back. Yesterday, there was a sacrifice to heaven. Today, something like this happened in the court. What the Empress Dowager did was not within old General Chen's expectations. Ning Shu smiled and said, "It's okay. Let Xiaolu go to the general's manor to get it." "Oh right, General Li Yuwei will also go with him." General Yuwei was the commander of the Imperial Guards. He would definitely bring his soldiers to the general's manor. "Grandfather, where did you put the medallion? Tell Xiaolu so that he won't have to search everywhere in the general's manor. It will be a waste of time and he will break things." Old General Chen said, "I don't remember clearly at the moment. I am old and my memory is not very good. I only remember that it was placed in a very safe place." Ning Shu smiled slightly and was not angry at all. "Grandfather, take your time to think about it. Oh right, you said that you would be rewarded for your hard work. Come, bring the gold medallion." A young eunuch carried a tray. On the tray was a golden medallion with the words, "Death-free" written on it. Old General Chen took the gold medallion and glanced at the Empress Dowager. He knelt down to thank her. He looked like he was thinking hard. Finally, he said the location of the tiger medallion. Xiaolu and the commander of the Imperial Guards hurried to find it. Old General Chen looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled at him. All the courtiers were waiting for Xiaolu and the commander of the Imperial Guards to come back. They knew that the emperor was going to take power now. Some of the officials could not sit still. They wiped the cold sweat on their foreheads with their sleeves from time to time. The atmosphere in the hall was solemn and stagnant. Everyone subconsciously held their breaths. Ning Shu coughed. Many of the officials were frightened by the sudden sound and trembled. "What else is there to report?" Ning Shu stroked his long sleeves and said casually. But none of the officials stepped forward. Ning Shu said lightly, "The world is so big. Is there nothing else?" Who was in the mood to talk about trivial things now? Now that the Shen family had fallen, they could not even protect themselves. How could they talk about the world's affairs? Chapter 2335. The quiet hall was mixed with the Empress Dowager's suppressed coughs. Ning Shu said to the Empress Dowager, "If Mohu isn't feeling well, go back and rest. I will have the imperial physician take a look at Mohu. Mohu, you must take care of your body." The Empress Dowager covered her mouth with a handkerchief and nodded. Just as she was about to leave, the officials immediately bowed. "Farewell, Empress Dowager." Ning Shu watched the Empress Dowager leave and then said to everyone, "It's quite boring. If you have something to say, say it." An official from the Ministry of Revenue stood up and said that because of the disaster relief, the national treasury was empty. "Tell me what you can do." "I can conjure silver. I can only think of ways to increase revenue and reduce expenditure," Ning Shu said. "Who knows how the disaster relief situation in Pingzhou is right now? Reporting to the emperor, there is no news." Ning Shu muttered, "How does this Su Qinggan do things? He didn't even send back a single piece of news and then sent people to Pingzhou." Although the officials continued to report some matters, the atmosphere was particularly solemn. Old General Chen stood at the front and didn't say a word. Everyone felt that each day was like a year. Finally, Xiaolu returned. Ning Shu placed his hand on the dragon throne and stroked it. Xiaolu presented the commander's seal to Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled slightly and accepted the commander's seal. He said to old General Chen as gently as a spring breeze, "Grandfather, stay in the palace for lunch. Mohu's body isn't well." Spend more time with her. This old official obeys. Old General Chen raised his hands and didn't say anything else. The imperial guards were in his hands. The Chen family's military power was also in his hands. Most of the officials in court were new faces. Ning Shu was very happy. He had the Chen family stay for lunch, including the grounded empress and his uncle or father-in-law. The Empress Dowager also attended, but because she wasn't feeling well, she left early. The atmosphere at the table was clearly very strange and still, but Ning Shu acted as if nothing had happened. He raised his wine cup and urged everyone to drink. Everyone had a serious expression. Only Ning Shu had a smile on his face. The Chen family's veins bulged. They knew he was happy, but he shouldn't be grinning like that. But when the emperor urged them to drink, they had to drink. The empress sat beside Ning Shu with her head lowered. She did not say a word and occasionally picked up some food to eat. In the end, old General Shen was someone who had seen great storms and waves. He instructed Ning Shu with a few words. It was nothing more than wanting Ning Shu to become a good emperor that was revered by tens of thousands. Ning Shu laughed and said that he wouldn't let his grandfather down. After the banquet was over, Ning Shu let General Shen go and didn't imprison him. Now that the military power in the Shen family's hands was gone, although they were granted a death exemption medal, if the Shen family's matters were to be exposed, several medals would not be enough. The Empress took this opportunity to find the Empress Dowager. As soon as she walked into the Empress Dowager's palace, she smelled a strong smell of medicine. The Empress lifted the bead curtain and saw the Empress Dowager lying on the couch. After bowing, she asked how her mother was doing. The Empress Dowager said in a hoarse and melancholy voice, "Illness comes like a falling mountain, and goes like spinning silk. Aunt, you're silly. How can you give the control of the imperial guards to the emperor?" The Empress couldn't help but say angrily. She was reborn, so she had to take precautions. She even asked her father to strengthen the guards in the mansion. She didn't want anyone to enter the house and had to carefully check every corner of the mansion. This was to prevent the emperor from using underhanded methods again. Before Ning Shu left the palace and went to the general's mansion, so he was directly chased away. The sacrificial ceremony was planned in advance. It needed the imperial guards. The imperial guards had always been the imperial guards and were in the hands of the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager didn't ask anyone and just gave it to the emperor. The Empress was now carrying the crime of killing her husband out of jealousy and killing the emperor. In order to save the Shen family, she could only do this. She didn't know when the incapable emperor would investigate. If he investigated, it would be a disaster. Now the Shen family had no power to truss a chicken. The Empress Dowager seemed to have phlegm in her throat. Anyway, it was not refreshing. She looked at the Empress. "Then what do you want Ijia to do? The Shen family's heart is getting bigger and bigger. Ijia has the heart but is powerless. I can't control the Shen family. Auntie, do you know what the Shen family will face next?" The Empress was very anxious. She just wanted to change the fate of the Shen family. The emperor is Ijia's child. Do you think Ijia wants to see the two sides fight? But at least the Shen family has the power to protect themselves. But now the Shen family can only wait to be captured. The Empress said weakly. So what if they gave her a death-free gold medallion? The death-free gold medallion couldn't be used every time. Although she took all the responsibility for the sacrificial ceremony, it would still implicate the Shen family. Also, she didn't know if the Shen family's previous matters would be exposed. There would always be people doing bad things in the name of the Shen family. These things would be blamed on the Shen family. If the emperor was more ruthless and put the blame on the Shen family would still repeat the same mistakes. The Empress felt very powerless. The house was about to collapse. She was alone. "Auntie, why don't you discuss it with me? If they want to kill, then kill. Anyway, the child was already 3 years old. Even if he was still young, at least the Shen family could survive. Since her rebirth, there were people dragging her down everywhere. The emperor was still treacherous. The empress was worried about her son and wanted to protect the Shen family. She was in a dilemma. She only wanted to protect the Shen family. If the emperor died, the Shen family would be saved. Ning Shu sent 5,000 troops to Pingzhou. First, it was to maintain the stability of Pingzhou and send some supplies over. Second, it was to kill the generals who relied on the Shen family. As for the crimes, they were ironclad. They embezzled military funds and seized land. They would be executed immediately and then take over the troops. Even if the Shen family was innocent and didn't seem to have done anything illegal, these people who relied on the Shen family could drag the Shen family to death. When there were more teammates, there would be more useless teammates. Ning Shu didn't feel sorry for the Empress Dowager who was in a dilemma. If he really wanted to protect the Shen family, he wouldn't have given them so much power. The Shen family also wouldn't have become arrogant. Once people became arrogant, they wouldn't be far from destruction. The Empress Dowager put her maternal family in important positions and pushed the Shen family to the peak of power. When Ning Shu was the Empress Dowager regent, he didn't choose her maternal family when selecting assistant ministers. He didn't dare to put her maternal family in important positions. This was a weakness that the civil and military officials could use against him. The most taboo thing in the royal family was for relatives to monopolize power. If the Shen family didn't have such great power, this wouldn't have happened. Now, when Ning Shu went to court, the imperial censor would impeach officials. Most of them were officials who relied on the Shen family. If it wasn't serious, Ning Shu would punish them. If it was serious, he would kill them directly. Corrupt officials were killed directly. This could change the atmosphere of the imperial court in a short time. Of course, after killing people, he had to appease the frightened officials. He had to say that even if he tightened his belt, he wouldn't let his beloved officials who worked hard for the country and the people suffer. The indifferent faces of the civil and military officials were speechless. Chapter 23:36. Other people would have all the civil and military officials fall in love with them, but Ning Shu would have all the civil and military officials hate her. If it wasn't for the replacement officials, the entire imperial court would have been empty, and there would be echoes when they spoke. All the civil and military officials clamped their tails, whether it was a fox's tail, a dog's tail, or a proud cat's tail, all of them were tucked away. They all knew that the emperor was cleaning up the Shen family, but the Shen family didn't make a move. They didn't understand what the emperor was thinking. Some people tried to send memorials to impeach some things. If they investigated carefully, it would definitely be related to the Shen family, but Ning Shu put it aside. This way, the court officials understood and did what they needed to do, not mentioning the Shen family's matters. Because he had power, Ning Shu had to read many memorials every day. These memorials were no longer filtered memorials. Some of the previous memorials had been read by the Empress Dowager and were kept away. Some memorials wouldn't appear in front of her. The memorials now were several times more than before. She was now an emperor who was diligent and loved the people. Because after the general guarding Pingzhou was killed, news of Pingzhou came back to the palace one after another. Su Qingan wrote a booklet and explained the situation in Pingzhou in detail. The flood had stopped and everywhere had been swept by the flood. Now, there was no way to carry out agricultural production or planting. Furthermore, under the impact of the flood, the houses had been reduced to pieces of wood. There wasn't even a place to live. Ning Shu told Su Qingan not to come back first, and to take precautions against the epidemic. Corpses that had been soaked in water were easy to develop an epidemic. The corpses had to be buried and disinfected. The spread of an epidemic was comparable to fire and water. The people sent over now were all his own people, so Su Qingan should be able to do whatever he wanted. The problem was that the national treasury was empty, and there was a flood. Ning Shu had to think of ways to deduct money. He always felt that he was a poor person no matter where he was. It was really miserable. Ning Shu suspected that he would be poor for the rest of his life, and that he lived a miserable life every day. Your Majesty, the Empress sent someone over to invite Your Majesty to the Empress Palace for a meal. Xiaoluzi bowed and said. Ning Shu's attention was on the memorials, and he didn't look up. When? Dinner. Ning Shu nodded. She didn't know why the Empress was looking for her. Ever since she came to this world, she had only met the Empress a few times, let alone share the same bed. The Empress seemed to have completely given up on her client. She did not fight for favor, nor did she seek favor. He ignored the Emperor. Ning Shu put down the cinnabar brush. Seeing that it was getting late, he headed for the Empress' sleeping quarters. The Empress's palace was very quiet. Other than the bright lights in the room, there was no sound at all. Everyone suspected that there was no one in the palace. Ning Shu walked in and felt the warmth of the charcoal fire on his face. The Empress was dressed very simply. Her hair was combed into a bun, and there was no hairpin on it. There were no earrings on her ears, and there was no face covering. Other than her clothes, there was nothing else on her body. Your Majesty. The Empress bowed. Ning Shu got up and sat down. The dishes on the gold-rimmed Nanmu table were sumptuous. The Empress poured a cup of wine for Ning Shu. Ning Shu raised the cup. Qinxie congratulates Your Majesty for achieving your wish. What wish? Ning Shu looked at the clear wine in the cup. It should be good wine, as it gave off a rich aroma. The Empress tilted her head and seemed to be puzzled. Isn't Your Majesty's wish to be in power? For power, you can do anything. Ning Shu's finger gently stroked the wine cup. Zhen can do anything for power. If you say power is not a good thing, then why does the Qin family not let go of power? The Qin family has always been protecting themselves, the Empress said. Ning Shu looked at the Empress. You want to walk this path to the end? Zhen has never touched the Qin family. Maybe you are in the palace and don't know the Qin family's matters, but the Qin family has done many things, Ning Shu said. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. The Empress's face became cold. You clearly know the conflict between the imperial family and the Qin family, but you insist on tying this matter to affection. On the other hand, your Qin family is also very hateful. You have power in your hands and say you are family, but you watch Zhen become a puppet emperor and control Zhen. Your accusation of Zhen is the same as Zhen's accusation of you. This was actually a conflict of ideas. Men used career, power, and wealth as their life's goal, while women used love and family as their life's hope. If there was a conflict between the two, it would be like Ning Shu and the Empress. If the client sacrificed a woman's love, family, and everything else for the sake of power and career, the woman would hate him to death. Calling him a scumbag was already a light punishment. Zhen won't drink the wine. You want to die, but Zhen doesn't want to die with you. Ning Shu stood up. Mother. At the door, a child with a bun held the door and stumbled in. When he saw Ning Shu, he incoherently called out, Father Emperor. This child was only about 3 years old. It was the age when he was ignorant. When he saw Ning Shu, he tentatively called out. Hong-er, come here. The Empress's voice was trembling. Her expression was very frightened. Today, she was going to die with this scum. When she saw her son, she almost cried. The child grabbed onto Ning Shu's clothes and shouted while drooling, Father. Ning Shu squatted down. The Empress held the child in horror. The child in her arms was ignorant. Ning Shu stood up, if there is nothing, don't play with poison. Where did the imperial palace get the poison? Did the Qin family give it to you to kill the emperor? It has nothing to do with the Qin family. It's me who wants to kill you. Wah wah wah. The child didn't know what was going on, but instinctively he cried. Ning Shu stood up. If there is nothing, don't show an expression in front of the child that your family is not good. If Zhen was a child, Zhen wouldn't be happy to see your face. The empress sneered. Her heart was sad. Then what was the meaning of her rebirth? There was no way to change the fate of the Qin family. Now that this scum didn't touch the Qin family, he must have some malicious thoughts. Ning Shu glanced at the wine and dishes on the table. Put these things away. There are children in the palace. If the children eat, you are lifting a stone to hit your own foot. The empress held the child tightly. Killing her and supporting this child to ascend the throne, in fact, the situation would not change. If this child was not raised to be a cripple, in the future, he would definitely seize power from the Qin family. Moreover, the Qin family had 2 regents and empress dowager. They didn't know how much power they had. In the end, if the Qin family didn't replace them, then the emperor could only be a puppet. The empress was reborn to protect the Qin family. When the time came, she would touch the Qin family. Would it be to make the Qin family hand over the military power for her son, or to let her son be a puppet emperor? Chapter 23:37. If one was not in the position, one would not be able to understand the trade-offs one was facing if one was not in the position. Even if this little emperor became the new emperor with the support of the Qin family, he still had to face the situation of the Qin family. Perhaps the empress could make the Qin family hand over their military power without bloodshed. Ning Shu grounded the empress and sent guards to guard the empress's palace. Then he went to the Empress Dowager's place to see the sick Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager could not continue coughing like this. If she continued coughing, her lungs would have problems. Although the Empress Dowager was sick, she was still very clear about the affairs of the imperial harem. Emperor Ro-er has already married into the imperial family. She is a member of the Murong family. She is your legal wife after all. If there is anything, Emperor should be more tolerant. Emperor can even take care of the world, you must be tolerant of your wife. She can't tolerate Zhen. Ning Shu patted the Empress Dowager's back. Muhu, rest more. Don't worry about these things. There was a lifetime in between. There was also the matter of the Qin family. The 2 of them could only be a pair of lovebirds in this life. The Empress Dowager was patted on the back by Ning Shu. She felt as if there was fresh air entering her lungs. She felt much better. She said to Ning Shu, Emperor, Ijia still has the same words. I hope you can let the Qin family go. Muhu, you don't have to worry about this matter. Ning Shu said. The person who first took power still needed to create the image of a benevolent emperor. The matter of the Qin family, he was afraid that they would still be exiled. If they did not punish the Qin family, the court would not be able to maintain order. Their entire family would be executed. The name of a tyrant would be placed on the head of the person who commissioned them. Especially since the Qin family had a blood relationship with the person who commissioned them. If they exterminated them, it would be hard to avoid giving people a feeling of being unreasonable. They could not be punished. They could not be punished heavily. So the method of the person who commissioned them was also feasible. The Empress Dowager grabbed Ning Shu's hand. Emperor, Ijia begs you. Ning Shu sighed, Zhen knows. Ning Shu returned to her bedroom and put away the commander's seal. Her mission should be almost complete. Now, there were a lot of soldiers guarding the Shen family. Now, the Shen family could not go out and were imprisoned. Ning Shu lay on the bed, closed his eyes, and sensed the water around the palace. Then, he expanded his range and headed towards Pingzhou. He sensed many rivers. He could sense how many fish there were in the river. When he reached Pengzhou, the flood had receded, and the flowing water no longer broke through the dam. Silt was piled up in many places, and the corpses of fishes and poultry were buried underneath. Ning Shu got up from the bed and put on her clothes to write a letter to Su Qingan. Was she clairvoyant? Water was everywhere in this place. If one could sense water, they would be able to sense the situation around them. This could be considered as one of the water skills. Ning Shu asked Su Qingan to clean up the river sand and deal with the corpses inside. Cremation was the only way to prevent the outbreak of the epidemic. So many refugees had to open their mouths to eat every day. It would be good to have something to do and rationalize the use of resources. After writing a new letter, he asked Xiao Lu to send someone to quickly send it over. Xiao Lu replied. Ning Shu looked at Xiao Lu and said, "Thank you for being by my side during this period of time. Reward him with 100 taels of silver." "Thank you, Your Majesty. This servant will definitely do my best until my death." Xiao Lu knelt down and thanked him. "I don't need you to do your best until your death. Go, send someone to quickly send it over." It was winter now, and the weather was cold. If it was summer, the corpses would rot quickly and cause an epidemic. Ning Shu did not want an epidemic to happen. Now that the treasury was empty, if something happened, they would ask for money from her. It was as if she could conjure up money. Ning Shu touched her chin. The Shen family definitely had money. Should she ask the Shen family to donate some money? They were really short on money. Ning Shu sighed and laid down on the bed to sleep. Every year, there would be taxes, but every year, the treasury would be empty. Where did all the money go? She had to make good accounts. In such a big country, was there no one to keep accounts? She covered herself with the blanket. She had endless worries every day. It was not so easy to hold power. Usually, when she was tired from reviewing memorials, Ning Shu would walk around the imperial garden, look at the scenery, feed the fish, and walk around the country's treasury to see if there was anything like the world's origin. No, hadn't the world's origin been found? The world's origin was found, but it was broken. It would be best if she could get the world's origin. She could sell it for more than 100,000 merit points or power of faith. It was quite good as an extra income. However, in the treasury, there were jade, pearls, ginseng, and ganoderma, but there was no world's origin. The light and darkness attribute world's origin looked like a walnut. Ning Shu scanned the box in the room. This kind of thing must be kept by blind, but it did not seem to be. Ning Shu released her spiritual power and enveloped the entire palace. She scanned the entire palace and found many bones. In the well and in the pool, there were bones. Ning Shu. The sanitation of the palace's water source was worrying. Since ancient times, the palace had been a place of cannibalism. When a straw mat died, it was thrown out. There were also people whose bodies were not even found and were buried in the palace. In the end, even the bones rotted. Thinking of the many bones around, it was strange and uncomfortable. Ning Shu asked the palace people to fish out the bones in the well and the pool and quietly bury them. Gu Yi's system felt the spiritual power sweep past and said to Embroidery Gu Yi, "This task enforcer's spiritual power is quite strong." Gu Yi was a little surprised. Is she not an intermediate task enforcer? The system paused for a moment and said, from the looks of her means and spiritual power, she is probably not an intermediate task enforcer. Then how did she appear in the intermediate task world? Gu Yi was puzzled and gave up. Probably for the system said. Quickly finish the task and leave this world. Now that we are living in peace, it does not mean that she will not have any thoughts. Okay, I know. I will finish the task soon. Gu Yi nodded and said apologetically, "It's about the system. I did not know that there were other task enforcers. Next time, I will be faster and not let others snatch it. I will let you become stronger quickly." Okay. The system said and did not speak anymore. This concubine greets the emperor. Ning Shu was strolling in the imperial garden and met the beautiful Ping Fangyi. Ping Fangyi bowed to Ning Shu in a flirtatious manner. Her eyes revealed eagerness and longing that were not there before. If Ping Fangyi gave people a look of not caring about anything before, then now she was like a harem concubine who longed for the emperor's favor. Ning Shu looked at Ping Fangyi from head to toe. What was that good beauty doing? Didn't she say that she wanted to complete the task? Why was Ping Fangyi standing here now? Except that she did not have the system, Ping Fangyi was no different. She should be more efficient. Chapter 2338. Ning Shu felt that Beauty Liang, this task enforcer, should be someone who had not been doing the task for long. She was very unfamiliar with the task, just like her. However, to be able to wander in an intermediate world, she should be an intermediate task enforcer. Emperor. Ping Fangyi saw that Ning Shu was not speaking, so she could not help but shout. Success or failure depended on this. In order to know the emperor's whereabouts, she almost spent all her savings to buy some information. Ping Fangyi felt that she had never been in such a difficult situation. After experiencing so many worlds, why did she fall into this man's hands? Despair, helplessness. She wanted to return to a peaceful and equal world, where she had food and clothes, where she did not have to worry about being beheaded by the emperor, and where she did not have to worry about being secretly harmed by the imperial concubines. Every day, she lived in fear. What made Ping Fangyi relieved was that the Empress Dowager was sick, so she did not have the energy to torment her. What's the situation in your heavenly palace? Have you exorcised the evil? Ning Shu asked. When Ping Fangyi heard this, the corner of her mouth slightly twitched. For a moment, she did not know how to explain, so she said, Emperor, N. Ning Shu waited for her explanation. Ning Shu felt that the person who entrusted this task should be a very charming emperor in history. Otherwise, it would not attract so many evil ghosts and serpent gods to have a vigorous love affair with the emperor. The country was like a painting, the beauty was like a poem, how beautiful was that? Just like the cold-faced fourth brother who would not let go of a prostitute, using a burning heart to melt the iceberg. Moreover, it was an emperor's iceberg. Ning Shu asked, what do you want to say? It's the wind. Ping Fangyi stammered. Ning Shu seemed to believe Ping Fangyi's words. He made an "oh" sound and then did not speak. Ping Fangyi said again, Emperor, Qinxia has brewed some plum blossom wine. Now, it's time to open the jar, does Emperor want to taste it? Oh, is that so? Ning Shu shook his head, Zhen is busy with government affairs, so Zhen will not go. You can withdraw. An anxious expression appeared on Ping Fangyi's face. She wanted to say something, but Xiaoluzi immediately said, Fangyi Nyang Nyang, when Emperor wants to drink wine, he will naturally go back to find you. Ping Fangyi saw Ning Shu staring at the pond. There were colorful koi fish in the pond. They were squeezed together to eat fish food, looking very carefree. Why was Guan Yu unwilling to go to her palace? Ping Fangyi turned her head 3 times with each step, and helplessly walked towards her own sleeping quarters. Ning Shu sprinkled some fish food into the pond, clapped his hands, and returned to the Xuanda Hall to review the memorials. She should have left this world. All the members of the Shen family were imprisoned in the general's residence. As for what the person who entrusted the mission would do, it was up to him. Moreover, Ning Shu was now eliminating the henchmen of the Shen family, especially the officials who had conflicts of interest with the Shen family. After meeting Ping Fangyi in the Imperial Garden, Ning Shu also met Lu Jiaoyi. Ning Shu. Wasn't she grounded? Your Majesty. Why did you come out? Qinxia is going to see the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager is sick, Qinxia has to serve her. Lu Jiaoyi said. Ning Shu, You are so filial, work hard. Lu Jiaoyi thought for a bit and said, Your Majesty, Qinxia has something to say, but I don't know if I should say it. Ning Shu disliked this kind of opening speech the most, so he lightly said, Since you know you shouldn't say it, then don't say it. Lu Jiaoyi was immediately choked. History said that he created the Qin dynasty and created a prosperous era, but his personality was really, Qinxia knows that Your Majesty is a sentimental person. She was lonely, rushing forward alone, and fighting with the ministers. Ning Shu, she didn't know if the person who entrusted the mission was lonely or not, but every time this girl looked at people with an, I know you the best, expression, it was intoxicating. She only learned a little from the history books, and thought that she understood this person. She was a bit arrogant. Perhaps he was a wise ruler, but it didn't mean that he would tolerate everyone. To be honest, seeing this expression of, I know you the best, she couldn't help but want to slap the face. Didn't you say that you knew me the best? Ning Shu said, Not lonely at all. It's lonely at the top. Zhen wears more clothes. Lu Jiaoyi, that she didn't know that this person was so humorous. Go see the Empress Dowager. Ning Shu waved his hand to Lu Jiaoyi. Lu Jiaoyi put down the food box in her hand and put the stacks of pastries on the stone table in the pavilion. Your Majesty, this is Qinxia's newly made pastries, have a taste. Put it here, Zhen will eat it, Ning Shu said. Lu Jiaoyi gathered her courage and reached out to hold Ning Shu's hand that was on the stone table. Ning Shu. He looked down at Lu Jiaoyi's white hand on the back of his hand and was silent for a moment. Lu Jiaoyi saw that Ning Shu was in a daze and tenderness appeared in her eyes. Ning Shu took back his hand. He couldn't figure out why Lu Jiaoyi was pitying him. Lu Jiaoyi was pitying an emperor. She felt that he was very pitiful. He was the ruler of the world, very pitiful. He didn't have a confidant by his side, so pitiful and sinful. But what Lu Jiaoyi didn't understand was that she was a pitiful person. He could take her life with a single sentence. Heaven, hell, glory, splendor, wealth, a single sentence could make her life different. Why did she think that the emperor was a pitiful person? Ning Shu's biggest feeling was that Lu Jiaoyi took herself too seriously. She felt that she might be different from the rest. She could give the emperor comfort and warmth, as well as true feelings. Ning Shu held his forehead and waved his hand to let her go. As for the pastries, he was too lazy to touch them. These pastries were not as delicious as the ones in the Lost City. The news that she liked to stroll around the imperial garden had already spread out. Now, people often came to scam her. After scamming her many times, Ning Shu stopped strolling around. During this period, Ning Shu also bumped into Ping Fangyi several times. Ping Fangyi was so lively, Ning Shu wondered if this beautiful woman was embroidering every day. Why didn't she take any action? In fact, Ning Shu really wronged the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman was from a medical family. She knew about medicine the best. Of course, she also knew about poisons. She poisoned her, but he didn't know why the beautiful woman wasn't poisoned. After discussing with her system for a while, the system felt that the beautiful woman's body should have been transformed by the system that had already left, so she was immune to poison. Since the poison didn't work, the beautiful woman had to find another way to deal with the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman scratched her head until she was bald. She couldn't think of a way to deal with Ping Fangyi without leaving any trouble for the client. After all, the client came back and had to survive in this harem. The system said, go visit Ping Fangyi. Don't you know hypnosis? Use hypnosis. Yes, hypnosis. The beautiful woman took out a needle and thread. Since it's a visit, I must give a gift. Embroidery? Just pick some jewelry from the makeup box. How much time would it take to embroider like this? Well, in fact, I quite like embroidery. The beautiful woman was somewhat regretful. The system didn't say a word. Chapter 2339. Ning Shu's delay in dealing with the Shen family caused a lot of criticism in the imperial court. Moreover, the empress was accused of murdering her husband. Everyone only knew what the empress did during the worship ceremony. If they knew, Empress Shen still wanted to poison the emperor. It would probably be a mess now. In an era where the husband was the leader of the wife and the monarch's orders were like the heavenly orders, the empress's actions were definitely challenging the bottom line of the scholar officials. The Chen family's matter had to be brought up again and again. Of course, there were people who wanted to fish in troubled waters. Ning Shu had dealt with a lot of corrupt officials during this period of time. The serious ones were directly removed from their positions. The less serious ones were directly demoted and transferred out of powerful departments. Therefore, some of the officials urgently wanted other things to slow down and stall for time. As an official, their buttocks were clean. There were more or less things that couldn't be seen in public. Ning Shu just emitted a sound for a while and didn't say anything. The civil and military officials of the court, Emperor, it's not good. Outside. Xiaolu walked in like he had seen a ghost and said to Ning Shu, who was reviewing memorials. The eunuch's voice was originally very sharp, but the agitated Xiaolu raised his voice a lot and became even sharper. What's wrong? Ning Shu circled the memorials and reviewed them before putting down the cinnabar brush. Ping Fangyi, Emperor, Ping Fangyi. Xiaolu couldn't say it and said, Emperor, you should go out and take a look. Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. When he went out of Xuanda Hall to take a look, he was completely confused. He even suspected that he had gone to the wrong place. Ping Fangyi was in front of Xuanda Hall, taking off her clothes one by one. As she took them off, she picked them up. It was enchanting and beautiful. It looked like she was doing a striptease. Ning Shu wanted to scratch his head. He looked at the belt and shoes on the ground. Ping Fangyi was barefoot on the ground. Ning Shu took a deep breath. How cold was this? Was this a different way to attract attention? In the blink of an eye, Ping Fangyi had already taken off her clothes. The fur cloak that she wore outside had already fallen to the ground. She had already taken off her outer clothes. Now, only her inner clothes were left. Ping Fangyi's posture and dance were very beautiful. If this was the modern era, it would definitely be beautiful. She took off her clothes one by one. Ning Shu was speechless. Then throw her out, Ning Shu said to Xiaoyozi. If you had the ability to change the rules, you could do it casually. Perhaps it would cause others to rush to imitate you. But Ping Fangyi had no way to change it now, so she had to follow the ancient feudal way of life. In the boudoir, this kind of action could be considered fun, but to do it in front of the Xuanda Hall, one's brain must be flooded with water. Although Ning Shu's voice was very loud and Ping Fangyi should stop when she heard it, she still continued to dance without fear or joy. She took off her inner clothes, revealing her bright red undergarment. With snow-white and flawless skin, Ping Fangyi did not seem to feel cold at all. She jumped up and wanted to take off her dudu. Hurry up and find a sack to cover her. Ning Shu rolled his eyes and said. Very good, you've successfully attracted my attention. Ning Shu stared at Ping Fangyi's eyes. Her eyes were blank, but her movements weren't slow. Was he being hypnotized? When Ping Fangyi woke up, she wouldn't remember what she had done. She didn't know why the emperor disliked her and even ordered her to die. She would fall out of favor or lose her life without knowing why. Ning Shu thought of Liang Meiren. He thought that Liang Meiren didn't do anything, but she made a big move. With Ping Fangyi's actions, falling out of favor was inevitable. If the imperial censor in the imperial court impeached her, Ping Fangyi's fate would be very bad. But if the emperor liked this kind of thing, he might not blame her. The eunuchs quickly picked up the cloak and coat on the ground. Several eunuchs held Ping Fangyi's hands tightly to prevent her from taking off her innermost clothes. They put the clothes and cloak on her body, but Ping Fangyi was still struggling, wanting to continue dancing. Ning Shu asked the eunuchs to tie Ping Fangyi up and send her back to the palace. He locked the door and let her dance in the room. This kind of hypnosis was a bit like sleepwalking. She didn't remember anything after waking up. Hypnosis could be considered a big weapon, but it had to ensure that the person being hypnotized didn't have a strong mental power. If they knew hypnosis, they wouldn't know if they were counter-hypnotized. Next, Ping Fangyi's matter spread like the wind to every corner. It was said that Ping Fangyi tried to seduce the emperor by taking off her clothes in front of Xian de Palace Hall. As a result, she was thrown back to the palace. During the morning court, some imperial censors said that this kind of trend should be stopped. If you want to fight for favor, you have to take off your clothes in front of someone else's door. If this kind of trend spread to the common people, it would be terrible. Usually, the trends in the imperial palace would spread outside the palace. It would be imitated by the nobles, wealthy merchants, and all social classes. Ning Shu only said, Ping Fangyi lost her mind. She underestimated Gu Yi. She thought that she was a lazy and soft little girl. Her methods were good. Ping Fangyi danced in the room for a day. She took off her clothes and finally fell asleep. When she woke up from the cold, she saw that she was lying on the cold floor. There was nothing on her body. She was very confused. She didn't know what happened. She stood up from the cold and put on her clothes. However, she couldn't open the door. The door was locked from the outside. Open the door, quick, quick. Ping Fangyi instinctively felt that something was wrong. There was no palace maid by her side to serve her. She was also locked up. Ping Fangyi didn't remember what happened at all. Open the door, quick, open the door. Ping Fangyi knocked on the door with all her strength. However, no one paid attention to her. It was clearly cold, but Ping Fangyi was so anxious that she broke out in a cold sweat. Being locked up in such a sealed space, was a man going to be let in next? This kind of insulting her chastity and giving the emperor a green belt was definitely a death sentence. Ping Fangyi didn't want to die. She didn't want to die in this lonely palace. She didn't want to become a wandering soul in this palace. Could it be that something happened while she was asleep? Otherwise, how could her clothes have left her body? She was envied. She didn't remember anything. Was she drugged? Ping Fangyi was so frightened that her face was distorted. She didn't understand who was afraid of her. What was the situation now? No one came to explain to her. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. Ping Fangyi successfully scared herself. She slammed on the door and shouted hoarsely. However, no one looked at her. Even if the palace maids passed by this room, they hurriedly lowered their heads and walked away quickly. Ning Shu had placed the Empress child under his knee to raise. Previously, he was incomparably calm. He looked as if he could kill or cut him. However, when Ning Shu wanted to take the child away, he instantly went crazy. He tightly hugged the child, looking as if he wanted to take the child down with him. Ning Shu, what was the situation? It seemed like she was a human trafficker. This child was also the child of the client. Why did the Empress have such an expression? Chapter 2340. This child was also the son of the first wife. It was fine for Ning Shu to get close to him, but the Empress, perhaps something had happened to this child in the previous life, or perhaps the person who entrusted this child did something to this child. Ning Shu didn't insist on getting close to this little baby. She drooled and her saliva stretched out like a thread. It was boring to see the Empress trembling with the child in her arms. The Empress watched as Ning Shu left. Her entire body seemed to have lost its strength. She hugged the child who was calling for his mother. The Empress hugged the child tightly and cried. She did not want this child to be like in the previous life. This child was raised by the incapable ruler. Although he was made the crown prince, he scolded the child for every small mistake. This made the child more and more afraid of him. In the end, he was framed and became the dethroned crown prince. He died before the age of 20. He died trembling with fear. The fatuous ruler never knew how much his children feared him. He did things timidly, and lived in fear forever. In this life, the empress wanted to give the child what he wanted. She wanted him to be a crown prince, not a submissive crown prince. A child without a mother to protect him. She stayed in the cold palace and became the child's weakness. He did not have a prominent maternal family. Every step he took made him afraid. Mother. The child did not understand and sweetly called for his mother. The empress felt an indescribable sense of self-abandonment. She felt that her efforts were useless. Nothing had changed. The fate of the Shen family had not changed. The empress wanted to hang herself here. But if she died, the fate of the Shen family and the fate of her child would not change. She wanted to die but could not. This sense of helplessness and despair tortured her. She did not know what to do. Empress Shen broke down and grabbed her hair. The child seemed to feel her pain, despair, and helplessness. He cried as he wiped his tears. Mother, mother, I am afraid, don't be afraid. Mother will protect you. I will not let anyone hurt you. I will do anything for you, even if I have to give up my life. Her soul floated in the palace, watching everything that happened in the palace. She watched as the incapable ruler scolded her child. She watched as the child knelt on the ground and admitted his mistake, sobbing. His entire body was trembling with fear. She couldn't let her child fall into that situation again. She wanted to drag the incapable ruler down with her. If she died, Aunt Empress Dowager would definitely let this child ascend the throne because this child's body had the blood of the Shen family. Other than this child, the other children in the harem were all very young and did not have many children. This child was the only choice of the Empress Dowager. A ray of light suddenly flashed into the Empress's heart. It was like a bolt of lightning that lit up her heart. This was a way. She sacrificed herself to give her child a chance to survive. However, would this child also become a puppet emperor like the current emperor? Becoming a puppet emperor was better than having an emperor suppressing him every day and wanting to take his life at any time. The empress hugged the child tightly, almost sinking the child into her body. She made up her mind. Mother. The child didn't understand what she was saying at all. Ning Shu naturally didn't know that Empress Shen had suffered so much. Being reborn meant that she had a chance to make a new choice in her life. She could avoid her previous mistakes. Perhaps in her previous life, Empress Shen had succeeded. That was why the person who entrusted her with the task offered his soul power to counterattack. A few days later, after Ning Shu left court, the Empress was waiting for him at the entrance of Xuanda Hall. What's the matter? Empress Ning Shu asked. Your Majesty. The Empress reached out and grabbed Ning Shu's hand. Empress, for the sake of so many years of marriage, please let the Shen family go, okay? Ning Shu. The Empress's attitude was really the same every day. Being held by the Empress's slightly trembling hand, Ning Shu was really speechless. Is there anything else? I made some food for you, Empress. Have a taste. Empress Ning Shu smiled gently. She was wearing a palace dress, graceful and luxurious. Her head ornament was dazzling and her face was powdered. Women doll themselves up for those who like them. If a woman didn't dress up for those who like her, then she was going to make a big move. Flaming red lips and eyeliner. That was definitely a sign of blackening. As far as the Empress was concerned, it was impossible for those who liked her. After all, she had given up on the person who entrusted her. So she was definitely going to make a big move. Ning Shu pulled back his hand and said, "I won't eat it." The Empress didn't care. She turned around and walked away gracefully. Ning Shu patted her hand and watched her fingernails slowly turn black. Ning Shu raised her hand and looked at it. Where did the Empress get so much poison? She was really drunk. Ning Shu circulated her qi and pricked her finger. Black blood flowed out of the wound with a fishy smell. A black line appeared on Ning Shu's wrist. It was poison. The black line was forced back. Ning Shu was sweating all over. She asked Xiaolu to prepare water for her to wash up. The Empress was really determined to kill her. If one time didn't work, she would try twice. This time, she fed the poison with her body and sacrificed her own life to drag her down with her. The Empress left Xuande Hall. Her lips were a little bruised. Even the bright red lipstick couldn't cover the bruise. The Empress endured the pain of her body and went to the Empress Dowager's palace. She said some specious words to the Empress Dowager who was cultivating her mind. The Empress Dowager had lived through all kinds of palace struggles. When she heard the Empress' words that seemed to be her last words, she felt something was wrong and asked what had happened. The Empress naturally wouldn't say that she had killed her son. But after the Emperor died, she would also die. The Empress Dowager only said to take good care of her child. The Empress leaned against the wall, black blood flowing out of her mouth. She finally returned to her palace. She wiped the blood from her mouth and called the child over. She touched the child's face. The Empress's throat was sweet and she couldn't help but want to spit blood. She had the wet nurse take the child away. She couldn't let the child see his mother die. The Empress had been waiting for the news of the Emperor's death. But her life was slipping away. She didn't hear the death knell. Instead, in her hazy consciousness, she heard the arrival of the Emperor. The Empress' mind shook and she spat out a mouthful of black blood. She saw a figure slowly walk in and reach her bedside in a flash. Ning Shu touched the Empress' hand and examined the Empress' black fingernails. "Why can't you figure it out?" Ning Shu seemed to show off as he reached out his hand. The fingernails were light pink and had a healthy glow. It was clear that he hadn't been poisoned. The Empress' eyes widened as she looked at Ning Shu's finger. Black blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. "Why? You killed Jin once. Shouldn't Jin be more alert? Even if you fed the poison with your body." Chapter 2341. The Empress smiled sadly and her eyes dimmed. She looked at Ning Shu with a complicated expression. "Your Majesty, have you never had me in your heart?" "Even ordinary couples have times when they see each other as enemies," Ning Shu said faintly. "Your Majesty, do you see me as an enemy?" "No, you see me as an enemy." It was too late to talk about whether he had feelings for her or not. The Empress should have a good rest. Don't play with poison all day." Ning Shu stood up and left. The Empress's death was delayed until the next morning. The funeral was very grand. The 3-year-old child didn't know what death was. He just cried and called for his mother. Ning Shu held the child and looked at the Empress's coffin. He could vaguely see the Empress's soul circling around her. Tears of blood seemed to flow out of her eyes and she pounced on the child again. Ning Shu chanted the Rebirth Sutra. A black hole appeared. The Empress's soul was very dim after her rebirth. It seemed that a gust of wind could blow it away. She probably couldn't even escape from the black hole. The Empress didn't think of entering the world of samsara until the black hole disappeared. Ning Shu also gave up the idea of sending the Empress to the afterlife. The Empress's obsession was very strong. She didn't want to enter the black hole. Maybe she wanted to be reborn again. But with the Empress's soul power, it was basically impossible for her to be reborn again. Since she was willing to be buried in the palace, Ning Shu would fulfill her wish. Even though the Empress's soul was hovering around Ning Shu, she couldn't hurt Ning Shu. Ning Shu led the little prince into the Xuanda palace. The Empress's soul followed behind. Under the sunlight, her soul became more transparent. Ning Shu smiled at where the Empress was standing. The Empress was very angry. She couldn't hurt the Emperor at all. This fatuous Emperor was protected by the astral wind. Why was such a fatuous Emperor protected by the heavens? It was unfair. He stepped on the bones of the Shen family and his hands were stained with blood. Why was such a person protected by the heavens? It was unfair. It was unfair. Looking at the child sitting on the lap of the incapable ruler, even if it was her soul, the Empress felt a heart-wrenching pain. She had worked so hard, why was it still like this? Her child died of depression, living in fear all day long. It was just that the client couldn't see it. If he knew that there was someone watching him every day, going to the toilet, pampering his concubines, attending court, and reviewing memorials, it would feel great. If he was right, the queen would soon disappear. If she couldn't enter the world of samsara, she wouldn't have a chance to start over. Ning Shu wiped the child's saliva with a handkerchief and began to review the memorials. The client should have high hopes for this child. Your Majesty, Beauty Liang is waiting for your summons outside the hall, Xiaolu said. Ning Shu nodded and let her in. Good Beauty saluted Ning Shu politely. After saluting, she secretly looked at Ning Shu. She seemed to be observing whether the emperor in front of her was a mission enforcer or a real emperor. Why are you looking at us? Ning Shu asked. I have embroidered a pouch for your Majesty. It can calm your mind. Beauty Liang took out a very delicate pouch. It was obviously embroidered, but there was no extra thread. It was very delicate. It's very beautiful. It's good that your Majesty likes it. This time I came to thank your Majesty. What are you thanking me for? Everyone understood each other. Why did she say it out loud? Beauty Liang wanted to say something, but she stopped. The atmosphere was a bit stiff. Beauty Liang couldn't find a topic to talk about. She could only leave first. Ning Shu sniffed the pouch. It was really a medicinal herb that could calm the mind. This mission enforcer knew medicine. It was very good. The more methods he had, the better he could protect himself. Who said that mission enforcers were definitely safe? Mission enforcers would also die miserably. Mission completed. Do you want to leave the mission enforcer's world? 2333's voice sounded. Ning Shu nodded. He was thinking about whether to continue the mission or go back. After thinking about it, he decided to go back. After all, he had to repair the peerless martial arts and feed the world of reincarnation. There were too many things to do. He had to go back and finish them before proceeding to the next mission. Back in the system space, there was half a bottle of pure golden soul origin liquid on the table. Ning Shu poured all the soul origin liquid on the world origin. As soon as the soul origin liquid touched the world origin, it was all absorbed by the peerless martial arts. Not a single drop was left. So greedy. After absorbing half a bottle of soul origin, the peerless martial arts didn't seem to have any changes. There were cracks all over it. It seemed that the cracks didn't decrease. Absorbing the soul origin liquid seemed to be useless. Ning Shu touched the peerless martial arts in melancholy. He felt that repairing the world was still far away. Even if it was repaired, there was still a bomb inside. Even if it was repaired, who knows when the law of nothingness would swallow the world. Damn it! How could he get that beautiful star stone? This thing didn't seem to be circulating in the market anymore. It couldn't be bought. It didn't matter if it was expensive, as long as it was available. But for something like this that couldn't be bought with money, it was really miserable. Without the soul origin liquid, Ning Shu had no choice. He took out some soul origin liquid and golden stones and let 2333 take them to the main system to purify. After feeding the peerless martial arts, Ning Shu poured some soul power into the black hole to feed the world of reincarnation. He sent all the purified soul stones to the main system into the black hole. These souls couldn't be used by him. They were all given to the black hole. After dealing with the two gluttons, Ning Shu began to absorb the soul power of this mission. It didn't take long for the soul power to be absorbed. Ning Shu smacked his lips. Damn, this soul power was so little. It probably wasn't that the soul power was little, but that she saw too many soul stones. This bit of soul power was just too little. Ning Shu stretched lazily and decided to take a look at the 9 Palace Mountains soul stone mine and mine there. Ning Shu clicked on the video to see the situation of the client. The client went back and exiled the Shen family. Men, women, old, and young were all exiled. If they could live, they could live. If they couldn't, then forget it. The Empress was dead. The client focused on raising the stepson. The Empress Dowager's cough had almost recovered. But after the Shen family was exiled, her condition worsened. She was bedridden every day. The Emperor would visit the Empress Dowager every day. The Empress Dowager held the Emperor's hand and said that the Emperor was cruel. If he could imprison the Shen family, why did he exile them to a bitter cold place? The Emperor only asked the Empress Dowager to recuperate and didn't need to care about political affairs. As for the evil spirits in the harem, the dancing Ping Fangyi was banished to the cold palace. Lu Jiaoyi, who needed to care for the Emperor all day long, was also banished to the cold palace. The two of them were kept company together. The two of them suddenly came to the desolate cold palace. Both of them were stunned. They couldn't accept this fact. Chapter 2342. When someone looked at you, they would always use an "I know you the best" expression. Even the person couldn't see themselves clearly and understand themselves, let alone others. Lu Jiaoyi didn't do anything wrong, it was just that she always had an "I want to talk to you" expression that made people speechless. If you really lacked love and were lonely, couldn't the client find other ways? Why did she have to talk to you? As for Ping Fangyi, playing the mind game was originally exciting and dangerous. It was very likely that she would fail. Even an experienced driver would fail. If she lost, she could only accept it. If she could climb back up again, that was called skill. Ning Shu closed the video and took a look at his own attributes. It had been a long time since he looked at the attribute panel. Recently, he had been on the battlefield and had used up all his faith. Name, Ning Shu. Age, 27 level, Super Client Points card, 243, 10 million points for 1 point card. Soul, 18 life, 16 wisdom, 18 luck, 20 charm, 13 spirit, 21 martial strength, 19 aptitude, 19 faith, 18231 merit, 246169 soul strength, 81 plus 5 authorization ticket, none pure heart, none comprehended law, water law incarnation, constructed world, suspected to be the world of reincarnation tools, calm halo, heart calming pill, faith halo, amulet 4, upgraded amulet plus 2 honorary titles, goddess of war, selfless ancestor skills, 5th ring shooting technique, intermediate fighting technique, intermediate level poison technique, beginner level business management knowledge, beginner level code programming, beginner level lawyer skill, sage ghost catching skill, beginner level cooking skill, intermediate level embroidery skill, trash hypnosis halo, mother of the world, queen's blessing, sister model worker, Chen Shi's blessing, leader halo, grass blessing, lifelong best friend, Miao Miao Miao's blessing, life-saving hand, Zhu Su, Nyang's blessing, founding woman, Chen Ermiai's blessing, beauty in law, Chen Ning's blessing, bane of the blood clan, Jasmine's blessing, cross-race communication, Bai Sanyang's blessing, brave heart, Wang Ying's blessing, bloodthirsty tyrant, Ni Binyan's blessing, fulfill the client's wish, seize power, mission completion rate, 100%. Mission rewards obtained, 15-point cards, 12 attribute points, 50% of soul power, 12030 faith power, including accumulated in previous worlds, 30 merit points, 40% of external soul power, 40% of soul source. Ning Shu looked at his reward and saw that he only had a little over 10,000 faith power left. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn, she only had this little bit of faith power left. War really burned money, not to mention that she still had some before collecting taxes. She had spent all of it. In any case, he had paid a huge price to keep his life. Ning Shu 2333 asked, is it because the war is over? Will it not deduct more soul energy from the quest takers? Previously, the main system would take away 10% more soul energy, but now that the war was over, why was it only 50%? Ning Shu exhaled, 2333, what did you say? I'm absorbing the power of the system. 2333 asked. I'm asking why is there so little soul energy this time? It was only 50%. Oh, it's an intermediate world. The client did not give up all of his soul energy, so your share is less. 2333 said and disappeared. Originally, Ning Shu wanted to ask if there would be more soul energy after the war, but 2333 did not respond. Ning Shu gave up on asking 2333 and directly opened the main system to ask if the main system would take an extra 10% of soul energy after the war. The main system simply replied with 2 words, no. Well, it was good that it wouldn't. Previously, the extra soul energy was probably collected to strengthen the soul army. Now that the war was over, the usual soul energy that the system took was enough. Ning Shu did not know what other people's attribute panel looked like, but he felt that his attribute panel was very ugly. His attribute points were all 10 to 20 points. He did not know what the passing line was, but his attribute points did not pass. Ning Shu casually added the attribute points. He felt that it was better to go mining. Maybe doing quests would be useful, but mining was a big matter. No one could stop Ning Shu from earning money for milk powder. It would be better if there were star stones. Should he ask the silver-haired man again? Ning Shu felt that it would be difficult for him to receive taxes from the silver-haired man. After all, he did not receive any taxes for 100 years. If he could not receive taxes from the silver-haired man in this life, what was the difference between life and a salted fish? Name, Ning Shu age, 27 level, Super Quest Taker Contribution Card, 243, 10 million for 1 contribution card, Soul Points, 18 plus 2 Health Points, 16 Wisdom, 18 plus 2 Luck, 20 plus 2 Charm, 13 plus 2 Spirit, 21 plus 2 Force, 19 plus 2 Aptitude, 19 plus 2 Faith, 18,231 plus 12030 Merit, 246,169 plus 30,000 Soul Strength, 86 plus 4 Authorization Ticket, None Pure Heart, None Comprehended Law, Water Law Incarnation, Constructed World, suspected to be the world of reincarnation items, Calm Aura, Calming Pill, Faith Aura, Amulet 4. Upgraded Amulet plus 2 honorary titles, Goddess of War, Selfless Ancestor Skills, 5th Ring Shooting Technique, Intermediate Fighting Technique, Intermediate Level Poison Technique, Beginner Level Business Management Knowledge, Beginner Level Code Programming, Beginner Level Lawyer Skill, Sage Ghost Catching Skill, Beginner Level Cooking Skill, Intermediate Level Embroidery Skill, Trash Hypnosis Aura. Mother of the World, Queen's Blessing, Sister Model Worker, Chen Shi's Blessing, Leader Aura. Grassa's Blessing, Best Friend for Life, Meow Meow Meow's Blessing, Healer, Zhu Su's Blessing, Founding Lady, Chen Ermiai's Blessing, Lawful Lady, Chen Ning's Blessing, Bane of the Blood Clan, Jasmine's Blessing, Transcending Race Communication, Bai Sanyang's Blessing, Brave Heart, Wang Ying's Blessing, Bloodthirsty Tyrant, Ni Binyan's Blessing, the chat system beeped. Ning Shu opened it and saw that it was a message from Mei Ziqing. He said that he had repaid 30,000 merit points and asked Ning Shu to check. Ning Shu looked at his balance and said that he had received it. Mei Ziqing, where have you been? Why haven't I seen you in Water City? I couldn't contact you either. Ning Shu, I went to hell on earth. Don't mention it. It was better not to talk about the war. Anyway, it was already over. Talking about it now would only cause panic. Besides, there was still a long time before the next war. The origin of the world and the fragments of the broken plane were things that the rats wanted. If they couldn't be given to the plane with living creatures, then they could use these things as replacements. The rats couldn't be eliminated. Their reproductive ability was heaven-defying. It was unrealistic to ask them not to eat the plane. She couldn't even pick up the fragments of the plane. She was speechless. It was because she wasn't strong enough. The fragments of the plane contained a lot of rules and information about the heavenly Tao. It would be good if she could learn something from the fragments. Chapter 2343. Mei Ziqing, I was wondering why I couldn't find you recently. Ning Shu, why are you looking for me? If you want to pay me back, just transfer the money to my identity card. Ning Shu, right, where's Xiaohua? Is Xiaohua back? Mei Ziqing. No, not at all. He hasn't shown up until now. I don't know where he went. I'm worried that Xiaohua might have been eaten. Ning Shu felt that this was possible. Xiaohua was naive and sweet, while Pan Chen was the big bad wolf. He would definitely sell Xiaohua. Xiaohua would help him count the money, and it was very likely that he was eaten. Even if he wasn't eaten, Xiaohua would probably be fooled by Pan Chen. Moreover, Xiaohua still had her 2 stones. Although they might not be the world's origin, it would be great if they could hatch something good. Ning Shu was worried that Xiaohua might have been eaten, let alone Mei Ziqing. Why did Mei Ziqing have so many worries for him? There were benefits to being alone. She coveted the warmth of having someone by her side, so she had to take on this responsibility. Ning Shu scratched his head and replied, it should be fine. Can you sense that he's still alive? He didn't believe that Mei Ziqing didn't put any tools on Xiaohua. Mei Ziqing, although I can sense it, it doesn't mean that he's still alive. Ning Shu couldn't comfort her and could only shrug. No matter what he said, it wouldn't be enough to comfort Mei Ziqing. After all, she wasn't the one who had to worry about Xiaohua. She couldn't empathize with Mei Ziqing. Ning Shu, the prices are normal now. There might be a lot of world's origin on the market. You can go look for it. The prices were high previously because all the resources had to be used in the war. There was also world's origin, which was something to be negotiated. Now that the war was over, there should be world's origin circulating on the market. Mei Ziqing nodded. Ning Shu felt that if Mei Ziqing wanted to successfully construct a world, he would have to be heavily in debt. After all, a world origin required a lot of money. Moreover, constructing a world required 7 world origins. Even if all 7 world origins were gathered, he might not be able to summon a living world. Perhaps you only created a space to store things, and not a plane that could give birth to living beings. In short, there was a lot of uncertainty in the process. He was not sure what problems had occurred in the process of the world's transformation, or if it had developed in a different direction, the outcome might have been completely different. This was a little fucking frustrating. Now, Mei Ziqing was burdened with debt and had to tighten his belt. He had to either spend time doing missions, searching world after world, or buy them with money. Thinking about how she had been looking for the world's origin, she had almost vomited. In the end, nearly half of the world's origin had been bought with money. Therefore, it was difficult to do anything without money. If one wanted to be strong, one had to have resources. Mei Ziqing also felt a lot of pressure. After chatting with Ning Shu for a while, he went offline, saying that he was going to do a mission and also look for the world's source and Xiaohua. Perhaps he would meet the wanton and pretentious Xiaohua in a certain world. Ning Shu could only think that the probability of this was a little low. After all, there were billions of planes, and it just so happened to be in one world. Even if it was in one world, to meet it among billions of living beings, how low was the probability? It was negligible. Just as he was about to close the chat system, Tian sent a message, saying that the soul's origin had been sold. Should he transfer the money to her now? Some things were better explained in person. Ning Shu appeared in the city of water in a flash. When he arrived at the auction house, Tian was waiting for him. How much did you sell it for this time? Ning Shu asked Tian. It was enough to have some money on him. Right now, the soul's origin was more important to repair the world. Not bad, 6 million faith power, Tian said. This is the money after the auction house takes a cut. Ning Shu was very satisfied. 6 million faith power was enough for him to create a scene for a long time. Tian transferred the money to Ning Shu and asked, City Lord, do you still have this? Ning Shu shook his head. No. If the soul's origin was so cheap, it wouldn't be so precious. Tian said calmly, although it's not pure soul's origin, it seems to be selling well. The price is rising steadily. Many people have inquired. If City Lord still has it, Tian can help to hype it up. Ning Shu wasn't tempted at all. He shook his head and said, no. What about the soul stones? The soul stones you brought over before? Tian asked. You didn't want them when I asked you before. Now you don't have them. Ning Shu said, why didn't you say you needed them earlier? I took them all to the main system to purify. Now, there's nothing left. Tian's eyes swept across Ning Shu's face. She tapped her finger on the table. Ning Shu asked in boredom, do you have star stones? It's a shining, beautiful stone that can hold the law of nothingness. Speaking of the law of nothingness, Ning Shu's intestines were in a knot. There's no such thing. Tian said, it's not available on the market. Ning Shu was speechless. You can't buy it even if you have money. Do you have a better world carrier? Even if he didn't give up on the peerless martial arts, he could still make preparations. He could choose a carrier to transfer the law of nothingness out of the peerless martial arts and then send this world up for someone to deal with the law of nothingness. Ning Shu felt like he was carrying a bomb every day. He didn't know when this bomb would explode and everything would be blown up. City Lord, what kind of carrier do you want? Tian asked. A carrier that can form a world will do. It was originally to transfer the law of nothingness. There is, but it might not be able to form a world. In fact, there are many carriers of worlds. A flower, a grain of sand, a mountain, a rock, a tree, a book. But not all of them can form a world, Tian said. What carrier do you have in your hands? Ning Shu said, something that can at least form a space. I don't have it in stock. If you need a space, you might as well buy a ready-made space. This kind of space can't form a living world, Tian said. When Ning Shu heard this, he felt that it was a good idea. Do you have a space? No. Ning Shu's face was cold. Then what do you have? This kind of thing usually can't be sold. You want me to find it for you? Tian said. Ning Shu nodded. Find it well. I definitely want a space. He transferred the bomb in the peerless martial arts. Tian nodded. After the matter was settled, Tian asked Ning Shu what he needed. Ning Shu said, I only want star stones. Tian was speechless. City Lord, you can look at the others. Ning Shu shook his head. No need. He didn't listen to C. Tion's promotion. He didn't know what C. Tion was going to promote to him. Ning Shu realized that his ears were a little soft. He definitely couldn't listen. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.